Good evening and welcome to the School Building Committee of January 15th, 2013. Is there any public comment this evening? Would anyone like to talk or ask any questions? No public comment. We will move to the next agenda item, which is approval of the minute for January 8th.
I'm sorry, there's a typo on the agenda.
2013, exactly.
It says 2012, 2013.
Yes. It was on the,
It was on the
Mi-
agenda. It
on
was
the
mine. It
agenda.
was my mistake, Chuck. They probably copied it from my agenda, right?
is there any, anyone like to make a motion on the minutes? Anyone need a minute to look at them?
You got a hard copy of the minutes?
January
I have mine.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 8th, 2013.
Second.
I would like to actually open the discussion. Michelle and I have talked about this a little bit, and we think that it would be in the best interests of the school if we start having any security discussions on the building in executive session, and to keep any security purposely vague in our minutes so that they aren't published. And so, may I see that for just a minute, Tilly? So my suggestion would be on page 2, wait a minute,
3.
page 3, under security, that we eliminate everything and just simply say security discussion was held.
That's all you need.
Yes, I mean, there's nothing that says we have
Plus,
to
if there's a
spill
vote,
things out.
if there's a vote, you gotta include the vote.
You have to meet the requirements. I think there's 9 of them to have an executive session. And if you don't meet any of them, you can't have it. That's very,
We do.
We do,
it's very plain.
right. But
And
that
this, this would not fall under any of them.
but we could still, is that true, that we would not be able to have an executive session to discuss security questions?
I'll have to review that, but I think we would be able to.
I think what she's saying is exclude these written comments on the minutes. All you need to
Yes.
record is votes. All this
Doesn't
information.
the committee want to know what is?
Not when it comes to
planning?
security.
Well,
I
right,
would.
there's a security committee that exists in town that's
Right.
made up of the fire chief, the police chief. Carol's taken part in it. You know, they're the ones that, you know, are going to be making a lot of the decisions about security. You know, they've already met, and, you know, our feeling is, you know, yes, we're going to have to vote to approve and, you know, review what they said, but we really don't want, you know, at this juncture, and, you know, I'll let Pat, you know, feel free to interject at any point with other building committees that he's working with, you know, have all of our security information.
I would object to it because I think the parents want to know.
Was
And
the-
I think that, you know, they want to know. And I think where this is being built, we want to know. Is it going to be protected? Is there enough protection? And I think,
We as a
Was it-
committee would know.
Was the, well, let me ask a
How?
question. Let me ask a
We've
question.
already had
Yeah.
a subcommittee meeting, a security subcommittee.
Is the security
subgroup.
subgroup part of that meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we just reference, have them keep the meeting notes, and in ours, we'll just reference for, you know, that it was held, and that for additional information, go to them. Let them decide, because it's not really,
And
we don't know
anyone-
all the requirements that they want to hold. It's really their meeting, so we're trying to find out information from them so we can build the thing, so.
And any parent who wanted to know could certainly ask. We just don't want it published.
I think
In detail.
that's more protection by publishing what you do have. It's like having the policeman's car out in front of a building. It's there, you see it, and you know that he's
Well,
there, and
Tilly,
that's security.
You know what? Think of it like a code blue, like the schools. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, Carol, but like, I mean, there are certain procedures that, you know, that the school has that are not public.
Well,
they
that
have-
would be something else. That's not our jurisdiction as to dictate to what the teachers are going to do or what.
Right.
what the process is gonna be until the parent wants to know, but we're talking about constructing a building.
But yep, but my point, my point, I mean, I hear you, and I don't know all the legal ramifications, Mike, but and all the rules that you have to follow. But I think if you simply treat it as that they are the note takers because it's their committee and they're telling us what they want us to know, we don't have to keep notes on that too. We can refer ours back to theirs and let them make the decision because they're the ones that are making the policies of what's public and what's not public and who can see it and who can't. It's not our job, I don't think. I think it's really theirs personally, so.
Carol?
I would just offer to the conversation, I was in this situation very recently because we obviously did some upgrading to our securities. So what I did is I shared the things I could in in open session. You know, like we're increasing the number of cameras, you know, at all 3 schools. We've got a new procedure when you come in that you have to report in. But we talked in executive session about the specifics of the plan, like where are we putting cameras specifically. You know, you could say, this group could say there's 15 cameras outside, 30 cameras inside. That's not compromising it. I wouldn't argue that's not compromising your security program, but if you wanted to get into the real specific nitty gritty that you didn't want to have available to everyone, you could do a compromise. So that, to hear what Tilly's saying about some of the information that can be public, to reassure people that you're paying attention to things like you're gonna be buzzed in 3 times before you, do you know what I mean?
Yes,
So that's
absolutely.
you could do that as a balance, I think.
It
That-
shouldn't, it
that's
shouldn't be
how
in the meeting notes, is what you're saying.
Well, the things that I discussed in open session were in our school committee meeting notes. One of the exemptions of the open meeting law is, or for executive session, is security. You can go in, that isn't acceptable.
That's in there.
And so I also had an executive session with the school committee that, you know, those notes weren't public.
But what's required from meeting minutes, from my understanding, are meeting votes. I mean, you don't have to
Right, you
include
don't
all
have
the
to detail
specifics.
every single
Is that right,
specific,
Mike?
that's true.
Yes,
That's true.
just
And we will have to
the
vote on it.
motion
And the vote.
and the vote. And a general
General
discussion.
No, like Ellie was saying, just say we discussed security. But nothing
But
else
no,
beyond that.
that's why I wanted to,
non-shiny
that's why I didn't answer the question directly. There are Homeland Security exemptions to the right to know law, and this would fall, I believe this would fall under it. Because you don't want the bad guys to know all the secrets.
Exactly.
You just,
It's not the parents, it's not about the parents. If the parent came and asked, we would tell them whatever they wanted.
Well, she mentioned going into executive session. Now to go into executive session first, the motion has to include the number, the number of why you're going into executive session first, and then you,
Right, and we're not having that discussion tonight. This,
Okay.
we're just discussing this in terms of how we want to present these minutes.
you know.
That I'm not proposing that we have an executive session this
Right.
evening.
And furthermore, what Jeff has just, as I understand it now, Jeff, when you have the subcommittee, they decide on their different subcommittees to promote it to us. We finalize the vote.
That's correct.
All
The
right,
vote would
so
have to be.
it's- So we would have to know what we're voting on.
In
And
general,
you're gonna know that.
in
Yeah.
general.
What materials the glass is gonna be made of.
Right.
What, you know, where are the door locks? What about, you know, the key around the neck and those type of things? We're gonna know all that. That's
Sure.
been-
We-
It's already been discussed anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
In a public session.
Right.
So we're
But
gonna
moving
get that.
forward, we think we should be a little bit more vague when we, in terms of what we present to the public.
So do you want to strike all the
I am
bulleted, all the
propos-
bulleted items?
I am proposing that's what we strike.
Page are you on?
Do we need a motion for that, or what?
Yes,
What
I would
page are
guess.
you on?
Page
3,
All right, as far
under
as,
security.
I only have 2, so.
That was last week's minutes.
Jeff, that's a different.
I only have 2 too.
Here, this is mine. I'm proposing that we strike the bullets.
Just leave the first.
Is there
First
anything
one.
else in there?
Just
and
leave
there's,
the
and
first
there's
one.
the
Yeah.
vote after that.
I went to Razzle Tile, I don't know where.
Yes, so basically
this
you
is
would
up-
leave,
this
you
is
would
big
leave
all
the
over
first bullet and the last one.
This is right here.
What is the
This
last
is
one?
last week's minutes,
The
January.
motion was
Yeah.
made.
Strike just the bullets.
So personal. I just don't agree with it, honestly, what you're proposing. So I'll be the negative.
That's fine.
I
I don't
think
think
it's,
that's not a specific procedure. It's
I
talking
don't
about-
either. see
It's
that,
not
but I'm-
procedure. We're
Well, I
just
think
talking
I think we're
about.
just trying to figure
I
out
think
the way
there's
we're
one
gonna
here that does,
proceed
but-
on security,
Right.
Dave.
sorry?
We're just trying to
In general.
get a process
Understand.
down for the way we're gonna
You're
proceed
asking
with
to strike
security.
something, I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are a couple of things in there that don't need to be made public. I mean, you even mentioned a couple. I don't think those
You-
need to be out there right
Do you
now.
want to strike specific bullets then? Or
The
all?
last-
Well, I
three.
was happy with I'm happy with just keeping the
last-
first one and the
last
last.
three out.
The last three.
Cameras.
What's a panic panel?
Foolproof button that the teacher presses and it sets off. It's
That's the
integrated
police
into the
station.
alarm system and puts the call to 911.
I think those are all good things to let out there. If there's any kooks out there, you know, they have to go some to.
They just have to read our minutes.
Right, right.
But you're not gonna put it in the minutes.
No, they'll have to find their own, they'll have to get the
Well, that's
information
what
their
we're
own way.
discussing now.
Personally, maybe the last three. I don't think the others are that or anything. But the last three bullets. We already talked about the first bullet throughout,
Yep.
right? So it's the last three that's a little bit more specific.
2 is vague. It's
Especially
just
the
an
third to last.
investigation. It's okay to say there'll be video.
The third to last.
Not
one,
gonna
the
use
fourth-
that.
The fifth bullet down.
We're talking bullets and not numbers, right?
Bullets in-
Right, all
These
into
are all
number
under
3.
security.
Bullets, we're
The
talking
fifth,
bullets and-
yeah.
Be careful with the use of terms, yes.
Yes.
A little filled in circle.
Okay, dots.
Oh well.
I could live with that.
So you want to amend your
Yeah, final.
Well, I think what we need is a proposed.
5, 6, and
You
7.
need a motion to, decide what you're
Number-
gonna take
yeah.
out, so we can. record
Bullets
it.
number 5, 6, and 7, or bullets, the 5th, 6th, and 7th bullet. Taken out,
Strike
the
those
meeting
out from the
notes.
minutes.
and
But my only
allow
issue-
allow the security
Sorry.
subcommittee to make the decision on things like that as to what they want to publicly publish, since they're in tune with the requirements.
My only
All right, wait a
issue-
minute, before you do, that was,
Go
A motion.
a motion. Would anyone care to second that?
Second.
Okay.
Right. My issue with that is, if you look at what we did, a motion was made by Ellie and seconded by David to support the notes and decisions made by the subgroup.
Right, that stays.
Right, but how do we know what the subgroup approved? You're gonna keep a separate, secret minutes? I mean, I don't think you can do that. Seriously, if I voted on this, I need to see what I voted on. And I don't think that should be out, that should stay in there. I don't think that's that specific. Listen, if somebody,
Well,
somebody's, a bad guy's gonna do something, they're probably gonna
Yeah,
scope
this
the
is
building
the
out first and
separate
say,
ones that are not
you know, they
subdivided.
have, panic button, there's cameras, so,
This is actually what was voted on.
right,
okay.
it's
The-
the notes.
It's the notes, it's the
a
DRA
separate
notes.
document.
Oh, all right.
Separate document.
It wasn't
Right, but
these
don't those have to be
bullets.
made public if we're voting on them?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you- so
My
you can't-
opinion. Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, what vote was that? The committee vote?
This is,
We
this
voted
is, yeah,
to
they
support
kept the
what
notes
the
and then the committee
decisions
voted
were.
on these notes.
Right, we voted last meeting to support what the decision was of the security committee. Peter, myself, and, who's Pete, Director's here somewhere. Peter and I were at that meeting with the police chief, fire chief, a whole group of people, IT people, everybody. So, I wouldn't be comfortable striking out what we voted. We voted to support those recommendations. How can you take them out?
Carol, did you want to
It's
say
not a
something?
procedure, they're general, it doesn't say, if there's a problem, we go do this. It's not a procedure. It's just saying we're gonna put laminate glass, we're gonna put cameras, and we're gonna have a panic button possibly. I don't see where that's a big issue.
The new schools of the world are going to be the last ones targeted if somebody's going to do something. It's the existing facilities that won't be updated after Newton. So I don't know, I guess, I don't wanna live in fear the way we seem to be living. And I recognize risk is something you gotta measure and respond to, but I have no problem with the notes staying in there.
Well, we have a motion that we can vote on, and then, someone can,
Well, unless somebody has a suggestion, as
unless someone wants to remotion.
Well, you already have a motion on the floor to
Yep.
amend what the original motion was. You gotta vote on that first, then
Yep.
go back to your original.
Well, why don't,
All right.
can we wait until Mike finds out about this, what was it, security?
Security exemption. from
Yeah,
the right
could we
to
wait
know.
till he
He
finds
said
out
it.
about that?
No,
and
it's
we'll
already
have-
done, it's already
We
done.
already
He
found
found
out.
it. He
Oh,
found
he
it.
found it.
Okay.
Oh,
but
I'm
don't say
sorry.
That's
okay.
Oh, that hurt like the sun.
Don't worry.
Don't disagree.
Keep my
with
hands
her.
on it.
Lefty. Do not disagree with her again.
Security.
Hit the panic button.
I think the point
Homeland
Yeah.
Security.
maybe
Find that.
that should be taken is I think Carol really said it, is when we write the notes, to give enough information to understand it as a group, but not specifics. You
Yes.
know?
Right.
For instance, cameras were discussed, and blah, 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 but not necessarily where they are, what they're gonna be mounted on, or anything like that. Security, alarm device in classrooms was discussed and would be put in, you know, entries, were discussed, you know, as to, for safety purposes. You know, those types of things, and just not say what it is, because
Yeah.
if you start saying very specifics, that's not good, I don't think, because we don't want that out. But if you give enough information that we're taking these types of precautions, that's pretty good. I think that's good. So I would just,
amend these notes?
I just think we're talking two different, we're talking policy, and we're talking correcting the minutes. I mean, so anybody can say, ask if this be struck, it doesn't even have to give a reason, and ask for a vote. So what I think what a lot of people here are discussing, is policy, and I don't think it belongs in making minute corrections. That's what-
my suggestion was for as we move on and write anything
Right, but
else.
we're correcting minutes right now.
I know.
You know, so we can
This
have
is an
this
open
discussion, you know.
After.
On the new business.
All right, did you find something you wanted to?
Would you
Yeah.
like to know what it
Yes.
says? It says, it's under exemption 4. It says to discuss the deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect thereto.
Can be done in executive session.
Right.
It's one of the
So
nine
if you're
exemptions.
talking about deployment.
So moving forward, then, I know this is still policy, but since we are having this discussion, that's something that we will talk about. Do we want to talk about security in an executive session? Right now, we'll take a vote on the,
Just striking these 3 bullets.
That's the vote. Yes.
Yeah,
that's the
it.
vote.
That's what's on the
That's
table.
the vote,
Move the question, Madam Chairman.
We need a second.
okay?
All right, the
We
last.
did get a
Which
second,
three
George
bullets?
seconded.
George.
Which 3 bullets?
Number
I have
five,
them.
we numbered them this way, 5, 6, and 7. Any other discussion? All in favor of removing bullets 5, 6, and 7?
Aye.
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 5, opposed? 3. Okay, motion carries.
I have a correction on site. I voted to abstain.
On site,
Yeah.
I had something I wanted to say.
okay.
Yes, you did, George. I'm sorry I missed that.
Can, as a matter of discussion, if I have to make a motion, I will, but could we go back and revisit these minutes? They've been struck out, you know, as presented, struck out. Can we go back and maybe put something
Yeah,
that's toned down?
final.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Can we? All right.
something more vague.
To what?
So, yeah, because
And
I
do you want
wanna
to
make sure that if I voted on something, I wanna make sure that the topic is at least in there. And there was what, 5, the last 3, 5, 6, and 7?
Yes,
Okay, so I make a motion, and again, we're gonna have to write this down as we go, I guess.
go ahead.
Make a motion to insert under section 3, security, that the security committee talked about
And it's-
options for exterior glass. Second, the committee also discussed the need for additional cameras throughout the entire building. And lastly, designers would make an inquiry on some type of additional 911 coverage.
What does your motion of your vote?
He wants it included in the minutes.
My motion is to amend those minutes to add to that section, those three
Oh,
things I
you're gonna
just
add
said,
to it.
into this section.
I would second.
Okay. All right, let me read it back. We would like to add to the minutes the following bullets. Need for cameras throughout the building,
Additional
Additional
cameras.
Cameras.
for additional, I'm sorry.
Discuss the need for additional cameras throughout the building.
Additional cameras throughout the building.
Options for security
Options
glass.
for exterior glass,
Security
No, just
glass?
exterior glass option.
Exterior glass?
for exterior glass, and for the designers to investigate,
Additional 911 capabilities.
911 capabilities.
That's very general, but at least the topics of the.
Yep,
Okay.
that's fine.
It's been seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
We have discussion first for that one?
Quick.
Is that, Carl, was that when I was asking about the burglar alarms in the windows? Is that the area that he just read?
We talked about that during.
That's
that
intrusion.
meeting.
No,
That's
intrusion.
That's
different.
intrusion alarm, we have that too.
You have that in there too?
Yeah.
Okay. In the minutes?
It's in the plan, I'm not sure what shows up in the minutes.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
All right.
There we go.
So all in favor again?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries to include those three bullets. Chuck, are you good with the bullets?
Yeah, thank you.
Any other changes to the minutes? Peter, I'm sorry, I haven't seen you over there voting.
No, that's good.
Just poke me if you need it. Want to slide them in? Yeah.
Here, sit between us so I don't get pitched
Yeah. I was just gonna
I'll
say
pinch
that.
Peter.
Jeff wants a cushion. All right, any other discussion on these minutes? Yes.
It was just on site. I couldn't help but notice there doesn't seem to be any mention of the concern that I expressed.
Which one?
Under site,
No, which concern?
this, the concern in general about
Timing?
site plan development being behind schedule, for lack of a better term, however you want to describe it.
Or concerns about completion, or being able to complete.
I heard that
Being
some-
able
Oh,
to
it's,
complete
No,
you
no,
know what?
it's in here though.
It's
No, in the
under the
financial.
OPM report. Look at page 2, number 6.
Yeah, it is in here,
in
Rob.
there.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Number 4.
There it is, that's good enough for me.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Oh, I knew you said that over there, so I was wondering.
Put it in there.
So do I hear a motion to accept the minutes of January 8th,
Oh, the motion's already been
2013?
made.
So as amended?
As amended. Okay. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Who was that second? I apologize, I was writing.
Dave,
I have to abstain since I wasn't there, so.
all right, and Jeff abstained. Thank you.
All right, so
All
we'll
right.
send out another copy of these minutes.
We have no invoices this evening, no correspondence. Pat, is there anything you'd like to go over, or Chuck for old
Actually,
business?
you know what? I'm sorry. Before we get into that, Mike just has something he wants to talk to the committee about.
I just want to bring an issue to the light of the committee. I discussed this briefly with the Board of Selectmen last night. It really has just popped up in the last week or so. The paying of the bills and the posting of bills has become problematic for the finance department. And I don't know if you're fully aware, but we have a one-person accounting office. The ProPay has not been real smooth, and it's been taking 6 to 8 weeks instead of 30 days to get reimbursement from the MSBA. And I've been warned by our treasurer that we're going to run into serious cash flow problems if that were to continue, because our spend rate is going to be really picking up. I also the town accountant came to me with her concerns in not having enough time to accomplish everything that she needs to do on her regular duties. And she's looking down the hill, down the road at, when we get into construction and beyond, that the number of the size of the payments and the number of billing, although Pat and Chuck met with us on Monday morning and tried to allay certain fears, but staff has talked with other communities, other finance departments that have multiple people in the department, and they have had to hire additional help to get the town through a school building project. I also discussed it with our own financial auditor, and she has seen it in other communities as well, and recommended, and said we're heading down a road where we're going to get ourselves into trouble. So we worked Monday morning. Carol attended the meeting because we looked at all different options. And our first option was to ask the school department financial team if they could help. And that doesn't seem to be a viable solution either. So I'm not putting a proposal before you tonight, but I will be at the next meeting, so I just want, and you'll have plenty of time to question it but I'm giving you a forewarning that I'm going to be coming back and asking to hire a additional clerk for 10 to 12 hours a month for the duration of the project. It'll be cost about probably $7,000, and I propose that it comes out of the owner's contingency in the project, which is we budgeted $400,000 for that. So I think $7,000 out of a $46 million project shouldn't be too much of a burden on the project budget. But that's, yeah, I'm gonna need your recommendation to take it back to the Board of Selectmen. So I'd like to get this taken care of as soon as possible.
I have a question really for Pat. Is that coming out of the contingency subject as a match to, in a category of a match?
No, they won't, no, MSB won't reimburse that. You can take it out of your budget, but there'll be no reimbursement against that.
Ron?
Is 7,000 is the total number?
Roughly
for
we
the
did
life
we
of
did
the
the
building?
back of the envelope, some real quick
Yeah.
math, and yeah, that's probably, it's only 10 hours a month for 30, less than say 30 months.
I have an operational question though. Can we mix money from the contingency into our regular operating budget?
I don't know what you mean by mix it in.
So how do you pay this person? Do they become an employee, or are we gonna hire an outside agency as a contract labor person? In other words, are we gonna get a pro pay expert that works for themselves, a self-employed person to come in and do it? Or are we gonna hire somebody that's on actual payroll? Because how do you mix bonded money into our operating budget? Or are you saying that we can budget for it well, it's probably too late to do that, in the upcoming budget, and then transfer money from that to take care of it? I mean, are you expecting it to be somebody that's a staff person, picking up extra hours, or a self-employed individual that, a separate company?
My first inclination is to find a qualified staff person to do it.
And how do we get that money to the operating budget from the school?
From MSBA.
Yeah,
No,
not from
it wouldn't.
MSBA, but
MSBA.
how do we take it out of the
Yeah.
owner's contingency
But
and
that
move it into
project.
our regular budget? Can you do that?
I don't know the mechanics,
Yeah.
but,
Well, not being accountant, I think there's been other communities that have done similar things, even with teachers, in one particular case, where they've kept the person on the payroll, and then they've simply cross-billed. They've actually billed from one account to another.
Okay, well, I just, again,
Yeah.
there's,
yeah,
because
I
that would
don't,
get mixed in, because you're not allowed a deficit spend.
Yeah.
If it's not been budgeted, the only thing you can deficit spend is snow and ice. So I was just curious to see how that mixed in. So we'd have to really, I think we'd have to check with DOR on that one, no?
Can you find out how other projects did it with schools?
Yeah, there've been other cases where they've simply cross-billed. I mean, again, like I said, the person's been on a payroll, and actually they've cross-billed. There's whatever's been assigned to the project, they simply bill that from that account into another account. So that person's on the payroll, but it's being compensated out of the account for this particular
What
project.
about pension? What about unemployment
That's something
insurance?
that,
What
I
about
mean,
all that
I'm not
stuff?
an accountant, but I'm
Yeah, so
saying
that's
that's what
my
they've
concern.
done.
Yeah,
You'd have
maybe
to,
more
you'd have to look at the
than that.
nitty-gritty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
may be more than
So you haven't looked at the
$7,000.
accounting arrangement, but somehow they've been able to do it.
we'll work out the details.
Yeah, okay.
That's, I don't see that as an issue.
We actually have a number of building committees, or we've worked with a couple of building committees that have, that their regulations or the selectmen have said that they should have a full-time clerk, secretary type clerk for the building committee.
Okay.
That's an in-staff person for the town.
So then it's allowed,
And
and
what
you're
they
able
do
to
is they
switch.
transfer the money between that.
Okay.
They,
All right,
they do
those are
the
my
same
questions.
thing. So
All right,
it's possible, but again, as we discussed in the meeting on Monday, it does take not only, as Mike says, votes of your committee and votes of the board of selectmen, it's also gonna take us writing a letter to the MSBA just to make them aware of it.
Right.
They, as Pat said, they won't reimburse for it, but if you don't let them know what's coming, when the first reimbursement goes in, it raises all.
So does Mike have to do that before he brings it to us for a vote? All right.
We just want
So
to.
you'll
No.
have all those
Yeah.
answers when you.
Once you get it all finalized, then we can do it, just let them know.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So what are you doing now if it's taken 6 to 8 weeks for MSBA to match it? I mean, how is that gonna be corrected?
Well, a large part of it, frankly, is here at the committee level, because we're not voting on the bills on a timely fashion.
That's where most of the loss is right now,
We've had some
you know?
quorum issues
Yeah.
occasionally.
Yeah,
So
Also,
if,
the
Lack
signatures
of
Yeah.
quorum and
yeah.
and then once you sign it, David's got to sign it, Ann's got to sign it. It just goes back and forth, back and forth. It's like a yo-yo, and it's just not a very efficient or smooth system.
is this gonna continue that system for construction right to the end?
Well, no,
Not the gaps, yeah. I know.
Can't.
I'm wondering, is everything coming to us to sign off before it starts the process of the
Yes.
accounting?
We have to approve.
Yeah.
So we're still
Everything.
gonna have that time frame.
Can we have less people sign it?
No. You have to
Yes,
have a quorum,
you,
right?
you,
Don't
d-
you?
you
can.
don't have to sign it at a meeting. You just need 4 signatures to approve it. I've
So we
explained
could-
that from day one.
So would we assign 4 people to
So they
review
could
that?
meet
That would work out.
That would
well.
help.
more
Yes.
frequently? Okay.
Well, and they just have to come down to town hall and sign it.
Yes.
Yeah, just so you're aware, the process is actually pretty efficient up until the time it gets to the point where it's gonna be signed. Because there'll be a grand total of, during the course of construction, there'll be 5 to 6 different invoices. The biggest invoice is gonna be the contractor's invoice, which has to be broken down by the CSI divisions. But we do all that. We do that and we code it. Chuck does a great job with that. We take that, we get it all ready, and that's after we sit down and we hammer it out with the contractor and negotiate it and so forth. So we get that all ready, and when it's ready, someone has to sit down and input the data into the Propay system. That is not very lengthy. It's fairly quick. And then you hit a button, it spits the forms out, and then then we sign it, the architect has to sign it, then it comes to the town account, and it goes, David has to sign it. That's where, so if you have a situation, and right after that, of course, it's signed after we obviously have, it's approved after we have the building committee approve it, then it goes through that whole rendition of payments and approving it. So once it gets approved here, then the invoices get paid, they have to be paid first, then it goes into ProPay. And that, again, once we hit that system, it goes pretty efficiently. And then MSBA usually will pay, within 30 days, they're gonna pay you. But again, if we don't have a quorum or something doesn't get signed, and you lose a month, and all of a sudden that 30 becomes, you know, you add it on to the overall time frame it takes to get the bill paid. But once we hit that stride and we get everything in place, it should move along pretty efficiently.
But all the bills are coming here to be approved first, right?
Well, the bills all come in here, they all get approved
So
by the
What's
committee.
the 4 people? That, I don't, you lost me.
Right, if we all have to approve it as a committee,
They're saying that.
Well, that's the
we-
question.
You
It
just
may
need
not have to
a
be, yeah.
majority of a quorum to sign bills.
But they have to be
But they
approved by
have
the
to- they
committee
have to be
first.
but our
No,
quorum
they
is
don't.
6 people.
That-
So we don't
That's
need-
how the selectmen sign the warrant. You
Right.
have
Right, you're right. No, you're
a
right.
meeting, you don't have a meeting, you just come in, the warrant's ready,
I got it.
and once we get 3 signatures, we can release the check.
So we're not looking for votes, we're just looking for approval.
Correct.
So you just need
Okay.
4 to approve. But then you approve them
So
at
you
the
need 4
meeting.
people that are available that can
To
go down.
sign, you
That
don't,
would be a
Town hall
help, yeah.
and-
you have to
So
have
they can meet once a
approval.
week
So
at
Mike,
the
so we
job
don't have
site
to
or
vote on
wherever,
them.
or town hall.
You do have to vote,
There's
that's,
no meeting even.
No, you
Yes,
don't.
You don't.
You
Well,
don't.
yeah, but
Yeah,
you have
just
to
come to
vote
sign.
after though, Mike.
you have to vote
When I-
first, and
when
then
I
you
think about
sign.
the school
No,
committee
there's
does
bills
it.
that are paid at town hall that we don't, selectmen don't vote on every single bill. The warrant's this big.
Yeah, but do you vote
As
on
long as-
acceptance of the warrant?
You accept,
No,
yes,
no, we don't.
when
We
you
don't-
sign it, you do.
Yeah, we sign it, but we don't do it in
That's
formal
accepting
session.
it.
It's not done in a meeting.
Right, it's not done in a
No,
meeting.
it's not done in a
I mean, Chuck
meeting,
keeps a
but
cash flow thing, just a cash flow account for us that goes back and forth with Mike too, every month, right? Is it every month?
It's part of your monthly
Yeah.
report, but,
Yeah.
but all the bills are actually logged into 2 systems, all your invoices. They're logged into the town's accounting system, which is Munis, but they're also logged into the ProPay system. So you know, we know exactly where all the bills are once they're approved.
Right.
As Pat was saying, the ProPay system's set up for reimbursement only, it doesn't have to do with paying bills.
Okay.
So how you pay bills, we wanna help streamline Mike's office or the accounting office in streamlining and getting approval of bills. That's what this discussion is,
Yeah.
Don't worry about the ProPay side of it, that's the reimbursement side. We're gonna work with Mike to streamline the ProPay side, where I'll make sure we're getting the forms to David, either at these meetings, or I'll meet him, whatever we need to do when he's in
I'm
town.
here.
We're close
Right,
by,
but
get
if
some
we're,
signs.
but go forward, and as we get
Sign stuff.
into this phase when there's gonna be a lot of money every month, we're planning to meet once every 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Give or
it's
take.
usually once a month, usually.
Most committees
Okay,
meet
so
once a
once
month, once a month, yeah,
So,
yeah.
if we don't time that with an invoice, we're waiting 4 weeks.
And that's
We'll
usually
work
what we
with you
try
in
and do,
time, though.
yeah.
We do.
yeah.
We're gonna set up a schedule with you where it makes the most sense to approve invoices and to give you an update on it.
So are you saying that we should leave the process the way that it has been running?
We're gonna help Mike from our end on the inside, do some things to help speed it along a little. But, it's the way you're doing and how you're getting bills paid through the accounting office, that's purely on Mike's side. There's not much I can do with that. And getting either invoices signed or invoices voted and approved. On the ProPay side, we can help speed that up.
So do we need to assign 4 people to just be able to sign it? Or do we actually have to vote on it here?
That's up to Mike.
Yeah, that's
You
that's
just-
something the town
you can
policy,
have-
whatever your
yeah,
policy
You
would
don't
be.
have to vote on every, well, I know it's gonna upset some people, but you don't have to vote on every bill. You could assign 4 people to sign them, it's a quorum, it's part of the warrant, and it's done. You could see them after the fact.
that's true. This town has always done it like you're quoting it, but I have seen other communities, I've often wondered this, like, Boxford, for instance, at their selectmen's meeting, they vote and approve the warrant, and then they sign it, and they do it at a meeting. I don't know whether that's just their policy.
It
It
is.
It
is.
would be, because otherwise we'd be written up
See-
like you wouldn't believe it.
Especially where money's
At
concerned.
the school committee, what they
Yeah.
do is they'll have 3 members of the committee come in and sign the warrant, review all the documents, sign the warrant. And then at the school committee meeting, then one of the things in the consent agenda is to accept the warrant and they read off the numbers. So they do it
So it's
both
right into
ways,
the
but it's
record that way.
individually reviewed by whoever is designated to go in and go through all the bills and make sure it matches up and the background information is there and
But is it already being processed
Yes.
and not waiting for the vote of the committee, right?
yes,
Okay.
Once it's been signed.
once
many-
it's been signed by 3 people.
How many invoices are you expecting us to have in a month?
When we get into construction,
Yes.
as I just said, you're gonna have probably maybe 5.
So
The reason I say 5 is you'll have the architect, the OPM, and the contractor.
Right.
Invariably, there'll always be a consultant, there'll be a mailing bill, a UPS bill for $8. So while you're approving $2 million for the contractor, there'll be a bill for $10 for, UPS.
You guys pay those bills.
So we don't have to, the person that, if they decide to hire, doesn't have to do any payroll taxes or anything for the
No,
guys?
no.
That's already taken?
No.
So this,
That's all.
Oh, because they think.
All right,
I don't-
so the question is, as a committee, do we want to appoint 4 people?
Carol.
Why not,
That's
why not
fine.
5 in
Like
case one is
Of
missing?
5,
Or
yeah.
appoint him as backup, and if we can't approve him here, and someone needs to go down to town hall, then those 4 people go down to town hall and sign it.
Mike,
If the meeting's been canceled or.
That's probably a good idea.
No, quorum.
Yeah, it can be any 4 of the committee members. yeah.
4 of the 7, is it here?
Yeah,
So you need
we
4
are
people
7 currently.
to sign it, right?
yes.
Yes.
Majority of a quorum.
Well, my feeling is, what if we leave it and see what happens? If you can get it organized to your satisfaction, Mike.
2 different things.
Okay.
2 different things.
Two different things.
You can
All
work.
The
right.
problem is the delay that could possibly happen and the cash flow issue.
Yeah, well, we don't want that, yeah.
We have a $2 million bill we gotta write a check for.
Right, and then,
Every day.
And then we don't,
meetings.
we
and
don't
then
get the
do it next
propane
month and
in.
we don't have the propane.
All right,
Get-
so-
The
so
4 is
let's-
a good idea.
How many like
Acceptable.
Carrie's suggestion then, that we appoint 4, and if we need to send them down, they do it?
It could be different for each
I don't even
month,
think you
as
have to
long as
even
it's
appoint,
full.
I think any of the, just put out.
Just say 4.
What we
Yeah, any
do
four.
Put out an
is
email.
the,
Ready, come in.
Who can do it? All
Yeah.
right,
we just send we just send an email out, say the warrant is ready.
yeah,
You know, we need
4
X
people.
signatures. And once we achieve the 4 signatures, you know, we send out an email saying, we got them, don't come down anymore.
but
All right.
who's gonna have the responsibility of letting us know there's $2 million in the kitty to write these invoices?
Oh, we're gonna be-
The owner project manager.
We're gonna
How
be-
is that gonna work out?
Oh,
The
you'll-
owner
you'll-
project manager,
we'll be-
lets us- he overlooks everything.
The first,
So-
first week of the month, the bills will all be accumulated and delivered to Mike with approvals. The architect will approve the requisitions, we'll approve all the items, they'll be given to Mike. Any superfluous bills that Mike has, as an example, if you do hire this additional person on the clerical side, that would be an invoice. So Mike will accumulate those along with the hours, the architects, and the contractors, and you'll all have them the first week, which is why when we get to scheduling building committee meetings, we always like to schedule the second week of the month for building committee meetings, because we get all the bills the end of the month, we review them all, we negotiate them all and so forth, get them all ready the first week of the month, they go to Mike, and then they're all ready, so that when we meet with the building committee, Mike will be going through his process and of paying them all, getting the signatures, but then you'll divulge at the building committee meeting what's been done that month.
Well, I think it's a good idea, because I do get concerned when we don't have a quorum, and things aren't getting paid, and they do get held up.
Especially through the summertime.
Yeah.
Yeah, statutorily, you have to pay the contractor within 15 days of receiving the invoice, or we owe them interest, so that's
Okay,
a law.
so that's all the more reason. So, Mike, you will accept responsibility for letting us know someone needs to come in, the signatures, and then following up with an email when you have enough.
I mean, primarily, you know, our first shot would be here at the meeting.
Correct, correct.
And then, if we're not gonna pay the bill, if the meeting cycle doesn't meet the payment cycle,
Then that's
then
the way
we're
to
gonna
handle
have
it.
to
Yeah.
have Plan B.
All right.
Yeah.
Do we need to vote on this?
No.
Okay, then that sounds good to me.
I mean,
Anything
anybody
else?
in any four-
No, I didn't mean to get that deep, I just wanted to tell you.
That just makes the next
Hey, you know
meeting a
what,
lot
you
easier.
solved the second problem, so, all
right.
Make the
right,
next meeting quicker.
all right,
Yeah, it's good.
that's
Thank you.
good, thank you.
So,
Okay,
Also, did the selectmen approve the amended CRA contract?
yes, that was
Yes,
gonna take
it's
care
all
of.
signed, and they have their copy, yeah.
So we do get some things done, Josh.
All right, Carl, would you like to talk about the kitchens?
Okay. We
Because
distributed,
that's probably the quickest.
we distributed notes from last week's meetings, which included, the first one was the kitchen
Another copy.
meeting.
I may have,
Oh, that one has
do you
my
think I
notes.
put them over here? Yes.
Does anyone else need a copy?
You have a copy, Pete? I think Pete needs it.
The front of it says.
Everybody have a copy? No, I've got one, I just want to
The
make sure you
front
have
of it
one.
says January 12th. The kitchen meetings are on the second page.
Double sided.
Sorry, we're energy or environmentally conscious,
That's
saving
Chuck- that's-
paper.
Chuck helped us out.
Guess
That's
I'm
good.
I do that too.
I'm
So
good.
the kitchen meeting was attended by Margaret was there, and the food service director for the district, Diane, can't pronounce her last name. Halapowski, thanks, Carol. Came over from the high school, I guess it was, and Mike Anderson was there, our kitchen consultant. We have a specialist who just designs food service equipment, the layout and specifying the equipment and all, was there. And we had enlarged plans to show, and again, if you want to refer to the plan up here, obviously, the kitchen is located right here, in this area, adjacent to the cafeteria, obviously, and adjacent to the receiving area back here. So we showed how the layout was proposed, how the flow of goods would happen from the receiving dock into the storage areas, which are along the side of the building here, walk-in coolers, walk-in freezer, storage area for dry goods, storage area for foods. Each have dedicated areas. There's a kitchen office, there's a kitchen toilet room, changing area, lockers. There's a washer dryer, there's a mop sink, hand sink, all dedicated to the kitchen staff, separate from the custodial staff, which is also in the back of the house here. But they do have separate areas for those services. The layout of the food service equipment, the basic layout was good. There were a few pieces of equipment that got fine-tuned and said, we need a couple fewer burners and another more of this. And I guess the big exciting thing was they wanted to get a pizza oven in there, which through some arrangement it looks like we can accommodate. We already had certain kinds of ovens, but these are specifically dedicated or enabled for pizza, but they can also cook other things. But that will be in there. So I think on the equipment side of things, we came away from that with consensus of what kind of equipment should be in there. There's also, we should point out, there's a dishwashing room right here, which right now the anticipation is that's just for trays, because everything else is disposable that the students use for meals. The kitchen staff may use the dish machine to wash, pots and pans occasionally if they want, even though they have a dedicated pot sink. But for the student serving utensils and all, those are all disposable except for the trays right now. So there is one reason this room sort of overlaps in the corners, so that you can have a return window here, a slide-up window to return trays and run them through the washer and so forth. We also talked about, though, because to improve the flow, and I think we have pretty good opportunities here for flow in that, there are two ways in and out of the cafeteria. So the school could operate where at changeover time, one of them is for incoming students and one's for outgoing. And by the outgoing area, we may well want to have McDonald's type tray returns where you dump your trash, put the tray there, so you don't have to go back to that corner and then leave the cafeteria. It would help the flow, and so we're also going to include those as part of the kitchen equipment. And those would be strategically located by a couple of the exits there. So that was one other refinement from the way we started discussion. But I think the other points are on here. One other item I want to highlight that we had to clarify is that there will not be disposals for disposal of garbage in the kitchen, because it triples the size of the septic field and triples the cost of the septic field if we were to do that. And there aren't ones currently at the school. And to sort of allow for that, there'll be more trash cans immediately adjacent to prep areas and so forth to capture that. So we pointed that out. We talked a little bit about recycling, and there will be provisions back at the loading area for not only regular trash but cardboard, for paper, for glass and plastic too. So recycling will be enabled back there. And then one other design thought was, we have 3 serving lines proposed here. along the frontage to the cafeteria, which should work for the number of students that we have to serve here. Even though the school may choose to run 4 lunch services, it's designed so that it could operate with 1/3 of the students at any one time, 3 lunch services. But it may be that the 3 lunch lines are not serving all the same food. 2 of them may be a hot meal, and the third might be salads or sandwiches, and there was a thought to try and open up, visually from the cafeteria to that serving area, so that 1, it's more inviting, 2, it's more open, and that you can actually, if you are making a choice as to what food you want, you know what line to get into because you can see it, further away and so forth. So rather than just conventional doors, 3-foot wide doors, 1 door in, another door out, and you just sort of queue up and slide your tray along the stainless steel tray slide. We thought about making wider openings with overhead doors in lieu of, hinged doors. So that's a design proposal we're going to try and work into this option. And right now it looks like, given the structure we have and some of the issues to deal with there, that we could get in like 4 8-foot wide roll-up doors there. So we'd have, very wide openings, 8-foot wide, a little piece of wall between them, another 8-foot wide opening from the cafeteria. But because we want to be able to close it off, say in the morning when it's kind of noisy in the kitchen while they're getting prepared for lunch, there might be an assembly or something going on in the cafeteria. You want to be able to shut that down. You roll down the doors, they're solid, you get, acoustical separation there. So that was another sort of design tweak that came up at that discussion that we're going to work into the plans right now. And I think the notes reflect all that. There was comment on another design implication is right now, I know it's very small here, but back here there's a kitchen office in a storage room. That kitchen office needs to serve 2 people, and so we might need to enlarge it. We need to check the size of it in terms of how we furnish it, make sure there's enough room for 2 people in there. Generally, kitchen offices are pretty minimal. Most of the space you want to use for cooking and preparing, and it's really almost just a phone booth that whoever is in charge there is using it to place orders or to make arrangements, or so it's really a quiet place. You can close the door and make phone calls and have a file there to store a few papers. But there may be 2 people that need to share that space, so we'll check the size of that. That may be requiring a little adjustment there. I think and there's some other just technicalities that are captured in those notes there. But so that was the.
So with the changes that were made in the equipment, are we still within budget and everything as you see it?
They were real trade-offs, yeah, from what we had before. So it's not expanding the scope of the equipment budget that we had at schematic design.
When you planned this, did you plan on utensils and dishes?
Yeah, the dish room could handle that, Peter.
But did you plan on buying them?
Oh, there is allowance in the budget to buy those so-called kitchen smallwares, the cooking utensils and things like that. Not utensils for the students. As of right now, that's not in the plans. And right now the equipment budget in general has a lot of allowances in it. We're just developing specific program elements now. So at the time of schematic design, there was just that $1,200 allowance for, equipment in general. But you can buy pots and pans and forks and knives and.
Knives and spoons.
Well, what's cheaper? Is it cheaper to keep on buying stuff to throw away, or is it cheaper to buy?
That's the discussion every district has, and you should have it too.
What do most schools do? What do most elementary schools do?
Changes.
It varies. I don't know of any that are sort of like full china, where everything is washable, tray, dish, silverware. But there's certainly many that are going to more washable stuff than disposable. Disposable was pretty popular, most recently, but
it's expensive.
it is expensive. It takes a lot of storage space, all those paper goods.
I have a question about, and this may sound really crazy, but about ventilation. you know, sometimes you walk into these cafeterias after they've been used, and it's like, ooh, it's. My concern would be, what's planned there for keeping the air fresh, and because it is abutting the court, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. Sometimes if it's wax paper pizza on Fridays, the place stinks like pizza after you leave.
Well,
So I don't know, just ventilation.
Yeah, there's a couple issues there, Dave. Probably, the configuration of the building will help that the kitchen is away from the classroom areas physically. So, when it's, 10 o'clock in the morning, you won't know what's for lunch yet, the way you do in some schools. But that also happens because the kitchen is a one-story high space.
Yep.
So even if you get good ventilation, the kitchen fan is located on the roof of the kitchen, generally, blowing it up. And whichever way the prevailing wind is blowing, it could be blowing it back, towards
It's
the
just it seems
school.
to me, after,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you know where the cafeteria is in some of these buildings. It's like, ooh.
A lot of the schools, one of
Yeah,
the
that-
major conservation measures is they shut the ventilation system
That's
down.
pretty,
Yeah, you get
that's
that
Your
older
ven- Your ventilation
schools.
system won't be shut down here.
Yeah, they're-
Well, just
that
want to
are
make sure there's plenty of
underserved.
ventilation
Yeah.
to get rid of the.
And the highest ceiling, I have to believe, would help a little bit too.
In the cafeteria,
Yes.
sure. There, I think too, I'm not positive, but, there's definitely a hood over the cooking area, and it's a gas cooking area, and I think when you turn on the gas, the fan turns
hood
on
goes on
automatically.
automatically.
Yeah, I hope
You
so.
don't have to manually turn on the fan, so they're interlocked.
Just
to
want to make sure there's plenty of
take
ventilation.
away the,
Where is the windows to the cafeteria? You don't have it on the design.
they're on either long side, Tilly?
The right side here?
Sorry,
Right and
get-
above.
on both sides.
What did you ask?
That's,
All the way through? There's
those are all
windows
windows, and those are all windows, on either side.
that can be opened for the ventilation?
Well, there's doors there. They're not operable otherwise. They're storefront glazing, but it is air conditioned. The cafeteria is air conditioned.
And is there an outside door if, in the warmer days, the kids want
Or
to go
the-
outside to eat? Can they do
Yes,
that?
there's two direct doors right there and right there. And it's not just to go out to eat. That's
Those are emergency.
probably unlikely, but
Yeah.
it's more about recess because
Yeah.
they have recess generally right before lunch, sometimes right after lunch, and there's a direct connection there.
I think Dave's point is good, though. The ventilation, I can remember the other high school,
Mhm.
they put this septic vent underneath the
Oh.
kitchen window. The sink.
Ooh, yeah.
No.
Well, that's the other
Ours is like
opportunity here.
pretty far away.
It's just, I just have this
Yeah,
thing
with-
about you walk into it and there's nobody there, but you can tell it's a cafeteria.
We definitely got a back of house area way back here, away from everything. So the what's it called? The grease interceptor is going to be back there.
Okay.
The pumps to the septic system are way back there. The septic system is a quarter mile away or so.
Right.
It's a long ways away, but it's all heading to the back and then
How about the
that way.
dishwasher exhaust? Do you have
So-
anything, you have an exhaust coming out of there? Or
Yep.
what's happening? Is it coming out the sidewall or is it going
No,
above the
it goes
roof?
through the roof.
Okay.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah, so this whole wall here is blank because it's
Yeah.
right up against the playground right out here. So, we've got all these storage rooms, dishwashing, walk-in coolers, storage. So this is all blank here.
Do they have any windows in there?
That's what I was.
No, in the kitchen itself?
No.
No.
Is there any opportunity to get any small little eyebrow?
Well,
windows?
I mean, if,
Yeah.
depending if the cafeteria is not being used, you open up those doors, it's wide open
Right.
to the cafeteria, which is a very sunny, light-filled space.
I think
in
it's a
that
nice
regard.
wall on that side to keep without
Yeah.
windows because kids and
Yeah.
throwing
Right.
things and stuff like
Right.
And the
that.
basketball.
And security and,
Plus, you got to be able to put all the
It's
kitchen
so
stuff in the
I mean,
kitchen.
kitchens don't really need
Right.
You won't be able to put them in there.
need anything.
they're
Especially
busy chopping
Especially
and.
in the freezer zone.
Yeah.
There is a direct path to the back door here, in that regard to,
And plus, with
Bring the
garage
trash
doors, they'll
out
be
or-
able to look out into the cafeteria and see out all those windows.
yeah.
Well,
So it's
how
not like they're
high?
locked up in a dungeon.
How high is the wall there? Are the walls?
Those are
Where's-
about 14 feet high. It's
14
just
feet.
one-story building back there.
You're not going
It's
to put
not-
any cabinets up at the top.
The exterior wall on the upper right-hand corner, how high is that wall?
14 feet.
That's 14 feet?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah,
is it
this-
planned that entire wall is for recreation purposes?
Well, right now we've planned, two backboards, two basketball hoops right here.
Yeah.
So you're sort of shooting towards the wall.
I'm just thinking, some of those rooms, are there people in there, like the dishwashing room?
You know, occasionally, just for a few minutes each period, that's all.
Okay.
Nobody's in there.
So there's no, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could play ball against the wall. It's not meant for that. It's, you know,
No,
basketball. But you mean being disruptive?
No, I was just thinking of, again, just trying to get natural.
Oh, high windows there?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it'd be a little, you're shooting basketballs there, we'd be a little concerned. We'd probably end up putting screens or something to protect the glass from breakage.
What about
If
roof
they were.
windows? How about those?
What's that?
A roof window, Skylar.
Yeah, if we show you the roof plan, there's 3 large rooftop units and a kitchen exhaust fan. There's a lot of equipment up there because there's 1 unit for the gym, 1 unit for the kitchen, 1 unit for the cafeteria, and an exhaust fan, all situated.
I mean, typically
on that
these
roof.
things, these kitchens and stuff, just to, for most people, they're, in most projects, they're buried in the center of a big building. It's not usually where you want windows or anything. These people are here to, you know, things open up. You have a big area in the serving area. It's all open. There's a lot of glass right there. But you know, like you said, on the right-hand side, those are all storage areas, freezer areas, things like that.
It's all back of the house
So it's all
type.
back of the house.
yeah,
now. It's
yeah.
really,
Diane never brought it up, the food service director.
And they're used to it. I mean, they don't have windows now.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just, I just asked. I didn't mean to open a can of worms. I was just curious.
Is there
Actually, we have Pam Lundquist is in the audience, and she's on the Health and Wellness Committee and works a great deal with Diane. Do you have any comments? That's your-
No, I'm really happy with everything I'm hearing. I'm excited about a panini press and.
Pam is working hard to improve the food.
Right,
so.
right.
Is there a teacher's lounge for them to eat?
We talked about that early on during the programming stage, Peter. It originally was in the program, but ultimately what we decided was to take the square footage that was allotted for that teacher's dining area, combine it with teacher's workroom, and divide it into 3 or 4, it's actually 4, remote teacher workrooms / lounges. They preferred to have that space on each floor, and there is one right here. So if a teacher were to, you know, get a hot meal, they could walk down the corridor right to that area there to eat the meal. But that was the trade-off. So there's no teacher's dining area immediately adjacent to the kitchen.
Okay.
And we've mentioned that each time we met with the teachers, and they didn't seem to object. They prefer this arrangement of space.
Carl, can you discuss the path? Like we talked about a little with Courtney, David, I just wanna make sure I understand. So when you're in that space, like you're a custodian or cafeteria worker or whatever, how do you get out of there? Because there's no
In
like corridors.
this space back here,
Yeah, there's no like corridor.
Yeah,
So
there
you
is
don't
sort
have
of-
people going through the kitchen, right?
there's an
That would probably
implied
be a
corridor here, and
safety issue.
you get out this way.
Yeah.
You mean outdoors?
No, so, you know, I'm the food service, head cook, and I need to take someone to the office.
Yeah, you walk right through the cafeteria.
Okay, so now if I'm let's say I'm a custodian.
Yeah.
So I use the bathroom in the back, and now I'm gonna, because I would think that there'd be some kind of health and safety issue of people just walking through the kitchen. Because like, for example, if I go to Pembroke today, I'm not supposed to just walk into the kitchen without the hairnet and all the other stuff that you're supposed to have. So that's all I'm trying to verify is how does one get out of that space without potentially going through where the food is prepped?
Yeah, if there's, you know, food prep going on and you don't want to go through that path, there's an alternate path through the gym here and coming out this side. There's a connection through
Okay,
there.
as long as there's not a gym class going, but
Right,
that's-
for that specific reason,
around
there's
that.
2
Okay.
ways
Okay,
out there. Yeah.
okay.
Is that a code issue, cutting through the kitchen? If food's
I don't know,
being
we'd have
prepped?
to check that out.
We'll check with the Board of Health.
Yeah.
I mean, it's designed so that path is always clear. There's no, you know, activity going on there. But, you know, we anticipate that and have an alternate way through there to come that way.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm picking up on what Carol said. If the custodian had to go to someplace in the building with a bucket, are there stations throughout the building
Oh, yeah.
where they get
Next
stuff
to
like
every-
that? So it's not
Next
a
to every
matter
toilet
of-
core, there's a janitor's
If
closet.
he's in the kitchen, he's in there for a reason.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
hungry. All right,
So-
that's,
He's gonna walk through, he's coming out because he did something in the kitchen.
yeah. All right. All right, anything
Okay.
else?
Thank you.
All right, so the kitchen discussion was pretty much just a report for us. There's nothing that we need to vote on. Carl's just updating us.
What is the flooring in there?
It's
Actually-
that poured epoxy flooring.
Like down there on the right, the different colors.
No,
That's
it's
a hammer.
like, did we bring some here?
Actually, we don't have epoxy with us.
Oh. But it's that poured, it has a grit to it,
Yep.
and it can cove up the walls to make a base sanitary.
It's all seamless,
It's all
so it's
seamless.
Spray it down and
Yeah.
it goes into the.
Yeah, they
Yep.
sort of trowel it on, I
Yep.
think,
Yeah.
squeegee it on.
And that actually leads us to the next discussion, which really is about flooring.
I knew that.
Nice segue. All right, so would you like to report on the exterior and interior materials?
Sure. Again, you can refer to the notes. Later that evening, we met with a larger group. It included Margaret and Mike Anderson was there. Michelle was there. Jeff. Who else? I'm sorry. That's right. Ellie couldn't resist, so she
I
came
was
back.
driving by, so I stopped.
And stopped in. And we started with interior materials, and the plan on the screen is color-coded to the proposed flooring materials right now. That's sort of a major category to start with, the proposed materials on the floor. And really, we confirmed more or less the same materials we were carrying during schematic design for these areas. We brought along a lot of samples. We brought along some sample patterns that have been used in other schools to show what's possible when using these materials too. I think there are a couple areas that we want to highlight here for discussion. But just to review that key, if you can't read all that small type, but starting at the front door. First of all, there's always walk-off mats at every entrance, and they're removable, so you can clean them. And sometimes actually carry not only into the vestibule, but into the lobby areas too, like over here in this vestibule or in this lobby right here, may be almost entirely walk-off mat. Because nowadays, you know, having a little 3-foot walk-off mat where you expect someone to stop and wipe their feet, they don't do that anymore.
How
And,
about into the cafeteria?
yeah, and we don't show them here, but we would have removable walk-off mats associated with each of those doors too. They're not permanent, you know, there's obviously flooring underneath them there because there is coming and going directly out those doors. So as you come into the lobby, then all this light gray material here is terrazzo tile. That's this kind of material, which, you know, has what's called aggregate, the pieces of stone, and then in a base of a matrix that's, you know, cement based, or in this case epoxy based, cut into tiles. Not, you know, you can also get terrazzo poured in place and polished and ground. That's a lot more expensive.
Permanently sealed?
You do have to reseal it. I don't know exactly what the maintenance is, Dave.
Well, the epoxy is
No.
a very impervious
Yeah.
matrix.
But
with it, so-
it's, you know, nice and shiny
Right, but it has to be resealed every so often.
every so often. You know, you do have joints between the pieces, but they can be pretty tight here. And again, you can do patterns. It's more economical if you do patterns in sort of the dimensions of the tiles, but you can do other things too. But it, obviously, very durable material, great for lobbies like that, and can still look very, very good too because it's shiny and it comes in a lot of colors, and you can see even within, you know, one piece, there's can be a lot of colors. This even has like recycled glass in it, and it can be a starting point for doing a color scheme in a school too. That you know you might pick up on some of these colors in the paint colors and the rubber base and in certain other materials that develop out of this material. So
Is it slippery if it gets wet?
That's what
it is a little bit it's something to be cautious of. That's why we recommend the walk-off mats. So we have a good canopy. You know, there's a canopy outside. There's a a vestibule, a walk-off mat inside. Hopefully, by the time you get to the terrazzo tile, your feet are dry there. So it really cuts down on that risk. It's again somewhat depends on the sealer you use there. You know, a lot of them can still be shiny, but they actually do have some grip. You know, you don't skid. It's not like a bowling alley or something in that regard.
What's the maintenance on that? Carl?
Basically, just a damp mop normally. Day to day, just sweeping it up and it'll stay shiny.
Is that
for
the
a long
thickness
time.
of the tile?
That's, it comes in two thicknesses, I think, generally, Peter. That's probably the thinner one, yeah. But it's thin set, you know, so you don't have to recess the floor a whole lot. Sometimes we do recess it just to get nice transitions, but, yeah, it is like that thick.
What's the replacement time?
Generally, you know, with all these materials, Tilly, we'll make sure that the school gets some extra material that they store. And you know, if you ever had to, you know, replace a piece of carpet or a broken tile, you know, this, you know, is not going to get damaged very often. But if it were to crack, you could, you know, chip it out and put a new one in its place. You'd own the tile.
Yeah.
Useful life,
to
though?
do that.
What's the useful life of it?
Oh, forever. You know, I mean, it'll last 50 years. There, so.
Does the committee have any concerns about the main entrance, the lobby, potentially being slippery? And
No, this stuff, just to let you know, I mean, this stuff is,
Yeah.
besides being durable, it's used in many, many places throughout,
Right.
you know,
Airport-
Boston, throughout airports, throughout everything for,
Yep.
you know,
It's a lobby
Turtle
material.
Sea.
That's
Yeah,
where you
there's a lot
usually
of-
see it in lobbies.
Yeah, that's where you usually see it, and it's a very good, you know, material.
don't those?
The other one is
Maybe
most
have
courthouses. You go in
experience.
any courthouse, and,
Yeah.
and who would be more concerned about lawsuits and liability than courthouses? They're terrazzo floors.
Yeah.
They've been
The
there since
hospitals are
1900.
too. When I was going into,
Aren't they the poured ones, though?
see my
Yes,
father
but,
in Leahy,
I mean, the finish
that's
is
what all
still
the
the
floors
same.
were when
Yeah.
you walk
Well,
in, and
What's
I.
the difference in price? of
And,
the-
and actually, with the tile, Rob,
It's not like real marble.
Have to say
Rob,
marble is
with the
slick.
tile, because you do have joints, that actually helps.
For sure.
It's less slippery
wonder-
than the continuous pour where you only have those metal divider strips which are polished and,
Right.
you know, these you get a little bit of
16.
It
traction.
has a little bit of
You
a
know.
tooth to it. It's not like a highly polished
Marble.
thing that
Yeah.
you just slide in and
Right.
go, I'm here.
It's
Yeah.
just, it's so many of all of
I can
those
feel.
public spaces
Right.
that you were talking about.
Right.
I mean, the
They
BCTs.
really are, when you walk in, if you, I don't know about you guys, but I've walked in and the rubber shoes you have on may not be the latest and greatest, and they've worn out a little bit, and it doesn't feel safe, even though you don't slip.
Right.
And you, it's public lobby.
What's the difference in the price, though? You said the poured terrazzo was much more expensive.
Much
How much?
more.
Twice,
Twice,
probably.
without
Looking
any
at-
maintenance ever, right?
What's that?
No maintenance at all after that.
It has to
No,
be
you
sealed
still have
sometimes.
to seal that occasionally, the poured in place stuff, yeah.
If you've ever been
Not-
to North
not in
Andover
here.
High School, there's.
I've been to Florida
there's a
and
whole
my
bunch
floor
of
was
floors
that,
in it.
and it would last forever. You didn't
Yeah.
have to do a thing, but
Well, Florida's
Yeah.
nice too, no snow and ice and grit. You know,
right,
to wear it
and
out.
sand,
North
a lot of
Andover.
sand.
North Andover is
North
usually
North Andover's all poured, just so happened there was the advantage of having a lot of money left over. So there was a $500,000 upgrade, so if you walk into North Andover,
Yeah.
all the corridors in the school,
That's
you know,
Milton.
and there's a bunch of logos, and if you walk through it, it's all, and I'm not aware they've ever had a problem, in the, you know, but again, poured in place is a huge upgrade in cost
It-
over what this is.
Part of the reason is the poured in place, this is a filed subcontractor in Massachusetts construction law, and there's only like really one guy that does it. You can get sometimes competitive numbers from 2 bidders, that's it. With tile, it can go in like ceramic tile,
Right.
and you get much more competition on the labor part of it, and get better pricing for that reason.
Did you say we have two different thicknesses? Have we chosen a thickness, or?
We have, I don't have the spec with me, George, I'm sorry on that, but
So we chose the thinner one?
I
or-
think so. Generally, there's no reason to go to the thicker one in an area like this. We're not talking about Logan Airport, you know.
And you're going right on top of
Um,
concrete, George, and this,
yeah.
the thinner one's gonna last you, I mean, like I said, it's a 50-year
The,
or
the
more flooring.
and with a lot of these materials
We have
too,
5/8.
we have some
This-
examples
We have this
here
thickness.
about
That looks like,
3/8.
that's look, wait,
Looks like half. inch.
about patterns and things.
that might be
With this
3/8.
material too, one of the things that we'll put into the design development cost estimating set is, you know, how much of this, you know,
Yeah.
more expensive kind do we want along with this? You know, this has the recycled glass in it, and maybe we use it as an accent in a field that's mostly this, and this is the more common standard type that's available. So
Is it patterned right through it?
Oh, yeah.
Right through the
solid.
other
Yeah,
side?
yeah.
You can see, it,
How they make it is
Yeah.
they take all these
it's like
stone and they
concrete
put it down
with
and then they
aggregate,
pour the
and then they
matrix
grind
over
it and polish it.
Okay.
We can pass 5/8.
And the neat thing about the glass in there is it gives a little
Yeah.
These are
sparkle
both thinner.
and it adds to the accent that you'll see. So it's really
Yeah.
beautiful
It
stuff.
is.
Yeah.
It's a pretty statement when you walk into a building.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Nice colors for school.
Next.
So, the next major material is the flooring material in the corridors here, and you can see the same colors in the cafeteria. This one takes you back in time because now we're suggesting, as we did before, linoleum. And it's like your grandmother's kitchen. I smell this and it reminds me of my grandmother's kitchen.
Any velvet drapes to go with the tile?
But,
We got a tea kettle on the stove.
Red velvet drapes?
but it's very natural material, very green
I love this one.
material.
It's the seams in the linoleum
Yes.
that's the problem,
Um,
isn't it?
How
The
can that be a
seams.
green product?
Yeah,
Linoleum is
Green?
that gets chipped.
again, fortunately here, we're on concrete subbase. We're not on wood floor like a house
Right.
that moves, and this is pretty solid base. And the other thing is, well, the major thing here is, like I said, it's a green material. It has very low maintenance because you don't have to wax it. It's not like, you know, the typical vinyl tile that's in a lot of schools, where you have to, you know, strip this and wax it with, well, initially you put 6 coats of wax on this, and then each, you know, winter and summer you do it again.
So people need to understand that this does not have a sheen to it.
Yes, that's the major
It's-
point here.
You can't go in and try and gloss something that's not meant to be glossy.
And we
That's-
really want to
it's
emphasize that
beautiful without
here.
being shiny, and that's okay.
There are a
All
lot of
floors
people.
don't
who-
have to shine.
There are a lot of people who are going to walk into the school, and it might be teachers, it may be parents, it may be others, who, if they don't see a shiny surface, think
Yeah.
it's not clean.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And
so
that's not the case.
we should
Yes.
discuss that here because,
Yeah, it's not meant to be shiny.
right, we have to
Yeah,
accept
You know,
that.
the
If-
problem with things that are
if we want
shiny,
that.
when they start to lose their sheen, then they show, and then you go,
I mean,
oh,
it's
that
not
feels
really
like
dull.
shiny
If you
anymore.
look at it, it will reflect light,
I think it's
but
very
it's
pretty.
not,
It is, yeah.
it's not shiny like wax.
You don't have one that would have a little bit of a sheen?
Well, that's a moderate, that's more like a
No.
sample.
If you look
Right.
close at that
Summer sheen.
under the light, Tilly, that's about as much reflection as you'll get on it.
It almost kind of, some of them
It
almost
gives
look
it more
like
of a
tile,
stone look.
which
It's,
doesn't
I
have
think
a
it's very
stripe
rich
tile,
looking.
like a flat
And we
tile.
can put
doesn't have
patterns
a-
in it and, you know.
Just
Wash
like with
Just,
that
just
machine,
just a mop, you know, to
they
get
have
the
one of
dust
those
off
right
it
on
day to
the
day.
hallways.
Nope.
What's that?
Did they have a
Like
ride-on
the
machine?
stone?
They do,
Flat
and that can
stone
burnish
tile?
it,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
you know, sort of bring back the even luster to it.
The one that looks like it's hot.
Possible to,
Could do that. But that one actually has a sheen on it, I think. Or wood.
it's damn near impossible to take.
We still do that in the classrooms, the material that we put in the
Translate
classrooms.
those
is still
into
You ever notice in a hospital?
That's why we're pulling out some photographs
They
to
have
share
some
with
great
you.
photos.
But, and again, we're not picking colors right
Pass them
now,
to Carol so she can see.
so
Yeah,
It's okay,
In
they
case-
don't shine.
in case people didn't just hear that,
feel comfortable with.
Ellie, we have a lot of conversations going on
Yeah.
here. So we can keep track of everybody. One thing that y'all missed was that Carl said that we are not picking finishes today.
Colors.
We are
Colors.
All colors.
We're not picking
looking
anything.
at the different
Colors.
materials, and because we talked about this in the meeting, the subcommittee meeting, and they are going to be coming back and showing us later through construction documents the development of those. The patterns on the floor, the final patterns are going to be there, the final colors. So we're going to have time to do all that. It's different than
Probably
the process.
twice.
Rob, yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
different than the process that you and I talked about that I usually go through with design, because usually ours is through DD and it's done. But this process is different, and I feel comfortable with it, because at the end of DD they'll know what it is what type of finish they're going to have, so it can be priced and everything. And then picking the finishes, the actual colors and patterns, that can come.
And the patterns
that'll move
don't
on.
affect the cost.
No.
As long as they have a pattern and they're showing
They'll show patterns.
Right.
mention a pattern, then it shouldn't.
That's why I say we'll do it twice, in that we will prepare drawings like this as part of our set that goes to the bidders. So the bidders will know that we're anticipating certain degree of complexity in the patterns. And we may specify a certain brand, you know, this is marmoleum. linoleum. But because it's Massachusetts public construction law, there has to be equals. So the bidder may submit, some different brand. Forbo is another linoleum maker brand and their colors may not be exactly. They may have something that's close to this, but we'll want to wait and see and get those submittals, pick the colors again with you, and confirm that this is the same pattern, even though their green is a little different than that green. Are we still all comfortable? That sort of thing. So that's why I say we'll do it twice more in that regard. But we will, when we issue the bid documents, have patterns and colors selected in there. So that's why we'll meet with you again in several months here.
When you do a pattern for those documents, if you have A, B, and C, and A is the most expensive pattern you can buy and C is the least expensive, do you go to the middle with your pattern?
We draw one pattern of what we anticipate. You can see sort of some degree of complexity here. We'll draw one pattern and we'll specify colors.
Yeah.
And generally, I think with linoleum, they're all the same price range. But with certain materials like ceramic, certain deep colors are more expensive than other more neutral colors.
Right.
So that's why we want to be specific with the colors, so the bidders know exactly, and they can't argue later. Well, yeah, I knew you had 3 colors, but I was pricing the 3 cheaper colors and not the expensive one or something.
Well,
so we do get
I'm
specific.
hanging my hat on your chair there.
That's fine.
If you're
I
good
feel
with that, I'm
comfortable
all
with
right
it,
with that.
and that's the first time that we'll actually go over colors is when these guys come back and show us their design, and the second time we'll go over colors is after all the finishes come in, and then they'll come back and say, well, like Carl was saying, this green isn't good anymore. It just isn't the right green, so we have to go to a different color. And in fact, when we get into we talked about lockers, which is a big part, and I don't know if you're going to talk about that later, but some of the things there is, since that's a big color, we need to own colors, but then we also need to own custom colors, so that if their colors are just really not great and there's no other way to not accept them, then you're stuck with them. But then you want to have the option of having custom colors, so that will be included in the price. Yeah.
Right.
It is every job goes the same way. I mean, it's all standard protocol.
Yeah.
But as
If you
far
have
as,
to wait till the submittals come in because of the 3 are equal, you've got to do that.
Yeah.
as far as colors, don't you have to match them with the walls? The colors that you have on the wall, and then you do the floor? Or is it the other way around?
You can do it either way.
Well, for us, like we said, one of the starting points is sort
do the
of
floor.
the materials that you have maybe the least
Say they're
choice on,
Least range.
the least range of good choices.
Okay.
That's often the lockers and the flooring material. Paints come in a million colors,
I
so
gotcha.
we can choose
Yeah.
paints on the walls, and ceramic tiles. There's a lot of those, but for certain of these, lockers and flooring are sometimes the starting points.
Yep.
Yeah.
What is the, how long will this last?
The linoleum.
Yep.
In terms of actual wear and tear, I don't know if we have a warranty on that, Peter. But again, durable material. It probably the material itself is going to go like 20 years.
Okay.
Depending,
how wide is
we're
a
putting
roll?
it in high traffic areas, but not
like 12
directly in
feet.
the
12 feet.
entrance.
Yeah, 12 feet.
They
12
come in
feet,
different lengths, but I think 12 is the longest.
the widest.
Yeah.
So there'll be seams in the cafeteria,
Oh yeah, yeah. But they can weld the seams.
and it
For
looks,
Actually, you
looks
should look
excellent.
into that, because they have a new way of doing it with a better glue, and they're finding that they don't have to weld it, and that actually reduces the price nowadays. And
They
they
just
have this
butt it,
test,
so-
and the guy comes in and he has this board, the box like sides and everything, and he puts the marmoleum in there, and he shows the seam right where it is, and he fills it with water, and it's been there for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it doesn't leak at all. So you should look into that. I can find some information on that
Okay.
for you too. But
Okay. So,
Okay,
that's another major choice, and we recommend it not just in the corridors here, but as it shows here on the stage, the platform, and the cafeteria too. And you can do some nice patterns and colors in there. So, in all these areas, as we've shown and shared, we envision patterning both as a way to just bring some life to the space, but also to hide dirt and marks and wear and tear. So none of this is monolithic or uniform there. So next major choice are the classrooms. All these blue areas here And for that, we do recommend, and we talked about this before, there's a kind of vinyl tile that has no vinyl in it, or less vinyl in it, more recycled content. So they call it biotile. And that's what we carried at schematic design. Remember, we had this discussion. It helps somewhat with lead points because of recycled content. But we're also going to price conventional vinyl tile too, so that we can, again, have a better judge of the value. And that's in the notes.
One thing I want to point out in the notes, I think it's a little bit backwards. You said the biotile will be an alternate for the project, and the VCT will be included in the base bid. It's supposed to be the other way around. We're going to keep the biotile,
Right.
and the VCT was going to be the.
So it's the same squares as VCT.
Yeah, it looks the same.
Yeah, so that gets
It's
reversed.
just a difference in price and a difference in how it's made. And again, once we have a price on it, it'll help you, gauge a value for it. The environmental benefits, so to speak, are more in the manufacture of the material than in the current school, because you still have to wax it and strip it just as much as vinyl tile. So in that sense, it's not really any more sustainable in the building. But
it is overall in the
vinyl
world,
is
so.
kind of a nasty product in the manufacturing process for the workers.
So how does that compare, Carl, cost to linoleum? Why wouldn't linoleum be recommended for the classrooms?
Linoleum's a lot more money, actually.
Oh, is it? Okay, that's what I don't know.
Yeah, it's.
The linoleum was
Yeah.
budgeted at $7.50 a square foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Biotile's like $5,
Which
and
doesn't-
the regular VCT was $4. So there was about
Plus
I
you
might
get
have-
lead
$1
credit.
Oh, I have
so
some
they're
information here, Carl.
I didn't.
Yeah,
No,
we-
but you
I
get
know.
more. You
You
get
don't
more
need
with
it.
with
It's
Marlboro
crazy,
than you would there. So
Maybe
I
it's
said you
installed
would
by
get more points.
Maybe.
Marmoleum, but we don't need the points. So
I'm
it's like-
figuring the glue, the wax.
best guess right now is about 50 grand difference between the two. But by
What's the question?
breaking them out as
So it's not price.
it's more money than
Yeah, I
regular
think they-
VCT, but
Save
less
us time.
money.
I can look at it.
Okay,
look at it
let's
in
move
process
on.
of it.
Yes.
While we're continuing down the classroom wings, in the boys and girls rooms here, we talked about that epoxy flooring, and I'm sorry, we don't have the sample tonight, but again, it's that poured material.
Here's the-
It's seamless.
Yeah, just-
There's
Oh,
no
okay.
Yeah.
grout joints, which is nice.
Okay,
People
we're
don't
good.
like ceramic tile because of the grout joints. And it can make a sanitary cove base up the wall, which is nice. And it's a speckled, it's not monolithic again, so it hides stains and comes in, decent colors.
That sounds like the best thing to me. Why aren't you
Yeah.
using that in more
Oh,
areas?
it's hard and it's kind of gritty. It's
If
not
you
something
fall
you'd
on
want
it, you'll
everywhere.
really hurt
until-
yourself.
Very utilitarian.
And you can't make it shine
Yeah.
the way you would want, in a vinyl floor or something like that. It's pebbly, sort of.
Well,
in that regard.
the maintenance is what I'm thinking
Yeah.
of.
Well, it'd be dirty.
It's more industrial
Yeah.
looking.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
It's a lot
appropriate.
higher.
Yeah,
For a bathroom,
it's
good, but not
expensive.
for outside.
It's what were we
Right,
talking
and it's
about?
more
The biotile,
expensive.
right?
It's
That's
11.
$10 or $11
Yeah.
a square foot.
Yeah.
This kind of tile is like $3.
Yeah,
So 3 times as expensive
yeah,
there. And again, a lot has to do with the labor. There aren't many
Yeah.
people that do that
Easier.
epoxy.
yeah. But our weakness in this town has been maintenance, so we really ought to
Well,
pay strict
yeah.
attention to that.
But
I
it's really meant for areas like the toilet rooms and the kitchen here, that are wet areas, where you have floor drains and you're gonna be mopping it and, sometimes cleaning it with a hose, that sort of thing. So that's why, in those areas, we recommend it, but it is, $10 or $11 a square foot. So as I mentioned, that would be in the kitchen. Then, another major material choice in the gymnasium, we're still going with wood flooring, which is obviously a very traditional choice for a gym. It is recommended by the PE teacher there.
And the subcommittee.
And when we looked at it, the cost difference between that and a synthetic rubber floor is, sometimes it's more expensive, sometimes less. There's kind of a range of quality level, but in that regard, it does require some maintenance. Obviously, in a gym, pretty traditional. People understand about stripping it and revarnishing it. Generally, depending on the wear and tear, once a season. Some people do it, refinish it maybe in the winter and then strip it and refinish it in the summer. So there might be, you know, 2 slightly different courses of maintenance over the course of a year. So those are the major floor materials there. One other one, in limited areas, we have carpet, generally in the office area, and if we go, I don't know if I can get to the second floor here.
The library?
Is it down here?
You'll also have
There it
recessed
is.
entry mats, you know, in front of each one of the
In
entrances.
the
so you can track your
library
stuff in.
here, that's carpet as well. And again, with carpet too, we recommend something even busier than this carpet pattern, you know, just to hide soil and stains and things. And I don't know if we mentioned specifically carpet tile. Did that get in the notes? It did get discussed. Mike Anderson asked about it.
Oh, yeah, it's not in the notes, but we did price carpet tile.
Yeah, you know, you can get carpet obviously in wide rolls and have few seams, but you can also get carpet in squares that sort of work into the pattern. You don't really notice the seams when it's down, and the advantage is there that if you wear out a section or stain a section, you just take out that tile and replace it. And again, you'd have spare tiles available. So Mike was interested in that. You know, it might make sense in a library if there's a lot of wear and tear right at the door or something like that, and you just want to replace that over time, to consider carpet tile.
Just
But
in
you can
that
see,
area or the whole area?
well, you'd probably do the whole library that way then, you know.
Is it really seamless?
No,
No, it has
no, it has
seams.
seams,
Patterns.
but they're hidden in the pattern.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's sort of linear patterns or very busy
The fibers
patterns.
kind
You
of-
don't see the seams at all.
This is a little different.
We just did our whole office. It's all carpet tile.
Oh, yeah?
That way. A lot of offices do.
There's also products, you probably know too, is there are roll good carpet tile, comes 6 foot widths.
Yes.
And depends on which ones you buy, but some you can get that you couldn't even see, you know, any joints or
Right,
patches
Depends
that
on
you
the
had to put in.
fiber
Yeah.
structure and all that.
Yeah, so there are ones like that, but I think carpet tile you can definitely get some nice patterns and some
Yeah.
fun patterns and make it part of the show of it all.
What's on the stairs, Carl?
And then the stairs is a rubber. Again, for stairs, we're very concerned about safety. They need to be non-slip. There's actually sort of a building code issue that specifies, you know, those kind of issues.
Doing those,
There are sort of
It's rubber.
2 choices here in terms of the finish of the rubber.
we're gonna be
Um,
hammered.
This kind has the dots. It's called radial.
talk about that, Carol.
There, and you can see that even the dots. There's a couple choices and profiles. One it's kind of like this, another it's kind of like rounded. But you can also get just this. This is textured,
Yeah.
but it's rubber, and it's non-slip. And you can see obviously it hides stains because it has that same kind of terrazzo
I like
look.
Yeah, we thought that
I
was
like-
a better,
right.
better way to go.
What, as opposed to the?
As opposed to
As
the
opposed
dots.
to
To the
dot.
circles.
These guys
Yeah,
will do
I would be in
your-
full support of that, but I've never seen a place that keeps those clean enough for me.
Right. That's another
I think Margaret shared that at our meeting.
Another factor in choosing stairs, obviously stairs are an area you can't really,
Thank
you
you,
know,
Mark.
wash and wax very easily. So
Did you see
you
those
want
on the
something
side?
that's easily maintained, which again, rubber doesn't need waxing.
You know, I kept my eye on it at school because I know they installed that in my building. And what I realized was that part was fine. It was the actual treads. They had used this diamond shaped.
Yeah.
So it's much smaller and the channels were deep and that's what was filthy. Those little diamonds.
Right.
That they were able to keep clean. And I was actually thinking it was the other way around.
Yeah. You know, the manufacturers know, and this is pretty low profile.
Right, that one, right.
So they you know, they've
gotten
heard the
better.
stories about trying to clean it or the
Right.
dust getting, you know,
Right,
caught.
that
But I
would
think-
be easy
But I
enough to
think
clean.
as just a look,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I like
much
that
nicer.
much
There's
better,
no
yeah.
question in
And
my
it's
mind.
soft, it's,
Right.
you know, cushioned, and you can
Yeah.
get preformed treads and risers and, again,
Is the heat
nice
affected
colors.
at all?
What's that?
The heat, because you have a lot of windows in the stairway.
Well, rubber's got a lot of give to it, so yeah, it shouldn't be an issue in that
You see that in
regard.
stairs all the time.
Right.
This material all the
It's
time.
the number one choice for stairs.
Yeah.
Carl, I was talking about.
Same with ramps too. We have a couple ramps in the building in the
Well, we did the
cafeteria.
hammer.
We'd want to do rubber on the ramps too for non-slip.
would you just touch base on entry mats and things like that? While we're talking about cleanliness, just where we're gonna have entry mats and
Yeah.
I think he
recess
showed that,
mats so
I
kids
think
are-
he showed that before.
Yeah, they show up
Yeah.
in your pack. We did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we went through that.
We already did that.
Um,
Coming in.
that we'd have it
Yeah.
not only in the vestibules, but also
Yeah.
actually carrying right into the front
There's
office
two different.
and right into this lobby too. So we'd have walk-off mats, throughout those spaces. So, we recognize
Two
that.
main entries.
We could even, specify and buy some loose ones for outside, under the canopies. So you start picking up off the dirt and water even before you get in the door, is always nice. And, they're small enough the custodian can roll them up and shake them out or replace them. Sometimes you buy two, you put one new one down, take the other one in the back and clean it or something.
You like to think you're gonna be able to get half the dirt off their feet before they get into the building
Sure.
itself. So
Right,
between
right.
outside and the recess mats, that goes a long way in keeping the building neat and organized.
There'll be a couple areas of the building too, just touch on that. We'll have no flooring at all, just be concrete.
Yeah.
And just with a sealer on it, like at the receiving area, or this outdoor storage room, in the back of house here, the storage room, there, down in the boiler room. There's no flooring at all in there, just concrete is ground smooth or finished smooth, and then put a sealer on it,
Okay.
just to keep the dust down in there. So that's the major flooring materials that we reviewed with the subcommittee, and again, we looked at some patterns, we looked at some possibilities there too. And then, carrying it up, we started looking at other wall materials and.
Wait a minute, before you do, Carol has a question on
Oh, I'm
flooring.
sorry, Karen.
I mean, if we wanted to wax the linoleum, can we? Or is it designed to not have that happen?
It's really beautiful
It has been.
in the satin finish.
It's not advised,
It's not
and the
advised.
Yeah, you'll
warranties,
be
the
the
warranties
waxer.
don't last when you wax them.
Just wondering.
And that money could go someplace else in the budget.
I hear you, Carol. I'm
Just
behind
wondering, I.
Carol.
You guys come from an era of shiny floors.
you. Like our shiny floors.
Carol, I think we're gonna
Shiny
see
is
some
clean.
pictures of some large areas of applications of this.
I would
To get a
love to go and
sense.
visit, a school where it's there, because honestly, every time I go into a school and it's dull floors, the kids scratch them up with their black sneakers, and, I just think they don't look well kept, but
We
I'd
put
love to go visit a place where you think it's done well, and I'd love
And
to.
it's been there for a little while.
Yeah.
multiple schools in Revere that we've done that
Okay.
have the product in there.
I will go with you if you want during February vacation
Okay.
and go visit a couple schools.
Yeah.
I'd like to go too.
Okay?
We can-
I'd like to
I'd be
go.
happy to
We
do
can
that.
coordinate that with you.
Okay.
Get a bus.
All right, we'll work that out.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
All right. Before
Okay.
we move on, because this comes under fixtures,
No, we're
this is
on
still.
this
interior
is still materials,
Still
okay.
materials.
Yeah. One of the things we shared with the subcommittee too was some inspirational photographs of what might be possible with some of the other materials. And one of the couple key areas where there's real sort of visual impact is obviously when you enter the school, in the front lobby, we have an open stair. That open stair will have a railing to it, as well as the walls, some of which go up, 2 stories. There's a lot of glass in one side of it to let in a lot of daylight too. One of the things that we pointed out there are a lot of interesting things we could do, possibilities with the railings to play up this theme of the school in the woods. And the railings can obviously, will still meet code, that they're strong enough and they have no openings larger than 4 inches and that sort of thing. But they, can be inspired maybe, literally or maybe a little more abstractly to look like branches or trees or leaves or things like that. We have it here. If we look, this started, if you look back here, we started just very simply thinking about, can we do something other than just straight, pickets there on the railing, and we just use these as some inspiration to show you, what can be done relatively simply. There it would be a very nice way to sort of introduce or carry that theme rather, right in the lobby of the school.
So it looks like wood, but it's metal.
Right, it'd probably be done out of metal, George, so it can be welded up and be part of the railing structure. that sort of thing is what we envision. Not actually, I know one of these is actually real wood, I think, but
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not talking about
We
that.
have a few code requirements that we.
You know, some of these too, you know, there may be
They look like brittles.
leaves that are applied over a mesh. That's another way to do it, you know, that it could be done more simply. But just to, again, show this as inspiration here. But most likely it's going to be metal. We try to choose a metal that, you know, is like pre-finished or doesn't need to be, you know, painted or finished every year, that sort of thing, particularly the handrail. That takes a lot of abuse. If you end up painting it, you got to paint it like every year to look good or get scratched.
How
So,
sharp is it?
we haven't selected any metals yet, but
You're
yeah.
talking metal in this, I'm just.
Yeah.
Right, you know, that's,
They would
I'm
have
not a
health,
fan of
safety,
cute things,
well.
I'm just a fan of a nice, well-designed school. You know, so I'm fine, but I just don't want it to be anything that kids could get hurt on.
right,
you know.
right.
They will have
Because,
code
well, they
issues
can,
that they.
if they're going
Yeah.
across, and there's leaves that.
No, it's,
Yeah.
we're not looking at the leaves, that's just an inspiration.
Okay.
Wait, I'm
Yeah.
looking at the leaves.
I know,
Their
we all
tiles-
are, because they're
well,
beautiful,
There are
but,
tiles over there with grass in it.
One in the center is,
Right there, on her door.
Yeah.
looks like, that one looks pretty
This one?
classic,
Yeah, I
yeah.
like
Yeah, I
that.
mean,
Show Rob
yeah,
those glass
something like
tiles.
this
Yeah.
I like that.
is
Like
now
the-
possible
this?
Yeah,
because
sorry, I can't.
something
We
like
show
this,
this
which is
around.
cut out of a sheet of flat stock metal,
Having some technical
is now
difficulties.
possible with laser cutters and, you know, computerized cutters
They've got
that,
stuff with like
um,
grasses.
can be done. Just, I'm gonna show this too, but.
Yeah,
um,
not yet, Rob.
as a way, so it's very, you know, smooth, there's no protruding, you know,
You're
surfaces.
talking about the,
This one.
This
that
Yeah,
part, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the vertical part,
Yeah.
the guard sort of, to keep you from falling through the stair, you know, as
Yeah.
you go up. Not the handrail itself. The handrail is gonna be a smooth pipe rail
Yeah.
kind of thing. But yeah, we are concerned about the rest of it too. You don't wanna get hung up on that or skin your knee or elbow or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I
Put
would
your
go
fingers
there.
through and
I
get
would,
them stuck.
I would like
and-
to strongly advocate
I live in
in your
schools, I get it.
inspiration to also, you know, I love the idea of woods and whatever, but fun also.
Right.
something they can climb and slide on.
Yeah, right. But
Fly down 2 stories.
I mean, it is a place for
Oh,
children.
absolutely.
And
The holes
you know,
in
I
there,
think
can
that's
they
the
stick
point
their bubble
with
gum
them
or something in
trying
those
to do
holes?
something a little
Sure.
better.
Pencils?
Yeah.
for sure.
No, I
This is
absolutely.
right outside the principal's office.
Okay.
So.
She'll
So
need a
just put
mirror.
slide instead of a
Another
handrail.
possibility is instead of, if you look at this, instead of, you know, a series of individual metal pieces, this whole parallelogram sometimes is made out of one material. You know, sometimes it's mesh. You've probably maybe seen stairs like that. It can also be made out of, you know, an acrylic panel too. This is one possibility for it. And these acrylic panels nowadays are amazing in what you can do. These are in essence like laminated glass, where there's an inner layer of plastic between, or of some material, laminated between 2 sheets of polycarbonate. And you can actually use real grass, real plants,
Well,
Isn't that
some of
cool?
the
you know,
trees.
things like that. Real trees, you
Some of
know.
the trees that we
So
have.
there's some leaves in there, you know, if you look at those.
This is-
So
City kids.
it's pretty expensive stuff, so we gotta be, you know, limited in how we would use it. But it's another way to introduce the theme
That they
We
gotta
can pick some
in
leaves from the
areas.
trees that we're cutting down.
Use the grasses.
I don't know, but
I
what's
knew
the
you would
middle
like
one?
that.
That's not any glass.
No, that's
No, that's just
steel.
cut up metal.
This is metal,
Yeah.
just cut out in a pattern. We actually did something like that on a project where we let the art teachers work with the students to actually design the pattern. And they had a vocational
Yeah, like
shop, and the
behind the
vocational
railings,
shop
like
actually cut
behind-
out
see
the
The rail
materials.
where the white stuff
So
is,
the
like,
school
instead of
built
that
the
decorative, we just have
panels.
like.
That's
white
really
stuff.
custom made.
Yeah, and they chose this pattern. It looked like overlapping tree trunks and branches.
Too small.
Oh, I like that. That one is really nice.
Yarn.
Yeah, you gotta be
This is
careful.
nice too.
Isn't that cool?
Almost like
It's a real good color.
And the good thing about it is that even if a certain one material is more expensive than other pieces, it's a very small area that we're talking about. It's that rail
Right.
that you see, and maybe and that's about it actually. Just that little bit.
Yeah,
only
it
goes
carries
up
on
one
up to the
Circle.
second floor, but
Right.
yeah.
So,
heavier, though.
you know, it comes
Yeah.
up and around and back up
How
again,
come is
right
this
there
one
to the
so
second
heavy?
floor. So it's not a lot of area.
Big piece.
No, is it? It's thicker though, isn't it?
Well, they come in
Oh
different
yeah, it's
thicknesses,
variety of thicknesses depending on how much you're spanning. Sometimes it's just like a face to a cabinet or something.
we gotta
so
cut
it
this
doesn't
short.
have
We're
to
getting
span very
goofy.
far, and so it used the thinnest kind.
Well, that's why we're gonna move this along, because we still have another report.
Keep going.
Yay.
This is the main lobby again. Just to notice too that we're talking about that hard tile on the floor, durable material there, and we'd want to carry it up the stairs because it's an open stair there, and you can get abrasive nosings, that are meant for stairs, so they're not slippery. They actually have built-in sort of grit pattern there, and also you can see we're suggesting some wood on the walls of the lobby too. Again, this is one area that's very high visibility, but it's also got good supervision. You're not going to have kids carving their name into it or something. You can monitor this area pretty well. So it's an area to suggest a slightly higher end finish there, which the wood paneling can do for us in there. Elsewhere in the building, as we go back to the plan, if we were to look at the corridors. Once we move down these long corridors, we start thinking about the wear and tear on the walls, and most all those corridors on this side are lined with lockers, metal lockers. For all the upper grades, there are lockers along the corridors. For the kindergarten ones, there aren't. There are cubbies inside the classrooms, and so there's sort of a different issue. All these walls are exposed, so to speak, drywall. And we'd want to protect that because just like in this room, there's this chair rail and wainscot. Here we're worried about chairs, but in a corridor you're worried about book bags and kids and hands and scratching. And so typically we recommend and we will carry a ceramic tile on the walls here up to a certain height, a wainscot height, to protect the wall from abuse and to make it easily cleanable. In the classroom wing, we have the metal lockers as a way to protect the walls in a sense. And where we don't have lockers, we would introduce some ceramic tile there too. It's a nice way to introduce color too, because obviously ceramic tile comes in a lot of attractive colors that can mix well with the color scheme. So the metal locker colors are a big component of the color scheme, and ceramic tile can be used to complement that. So that's the sort of major wall materials, because again, almost all these walls that we see here are going to be made of metal stud and drywall. They're not concrete block. We're building schools nowadays more and more out of metal studs, drywall. It's less expensive initially. It's also more flexible in the long run. You can fish wires through them. You can tear them down and rebuild them much more easily than you can with concrete block. The old days schools were built, every wall was block or something, we don't need to do that anymore, but we do need to think about, all the corners and make sure it's durable. They do make drywall that's abuse resistant drywall. The face of it is not just paper. If you were to punch it, you can't punch through it very easily, or even with a pen or a pencil or a book bag, it has like a layer of fiberglass in it to be abuse resistant. So
That sounds good.
yeah. So that's the wall materials. Inside the classroom, we'd go back to regular drywall because again, there's so many marker boards and tack boards. The walls are pretty well protected within the classroom. There's also more supervision in a classroom than typically in a hallway there. And then for the ceilings, that's another area where we were using this inspiration board. For the vast majority of the ceilings, we'd have conventional acoustical ceiling tile to absorb sound. It's an economical material, has good recycled content. But then there are a few special areas, and you can see them right in the plan. These widened areas in the corridors, the intersection there, and at the end of the corridor, where we'd like to suggest, a special sort of ceiling treatment. And two of them that come to mind are a sort of wood ceiling that again would be in a limited area, a way to introduce natural wood into the school. In other areas, this open grate is another way to have some of the fun Rob was talking about, fanciful, at relatively economically. So generally you float these things down below the ceiling a little bit, you still have a normal ceiling up above. We might be able to achieve some kind of feeling as if you've got light coming through the branches of a tree or leaves or something, the way it filters through a sheet of that kind of metal or something like that. So and also these little bit of soffitted areas that, remember in the corridor, right, in these widened areas, we envision those areas being utilized by the students. We did a little sketch here, if you can see that. Here's one of those inside corners. So there's the door to the classroom. There's some interior windows for supervision and a little bit of transparency, but there'd be a little bit of a built-in bench there. And maybe just by dropping the soffit a bit, you're sort of making it a little cozier. You're kind of, identifying that area as a place for a couple people to work together. And there's still lockers in part of it and so forth. So in those areas, we're suggesting there be some hard ceilinged areas, as opposed to the acoustic tile ceiling areas.
Now, those windows, are those tempered?
Those would be regular glass there.
So
if
you
they're
can-
near a door, they have to be
Safety
tempered, but typically they're regular glass. And we talked about having blinds, so if the teacher did want privacy, they could close blinds there, so kids passing in the hallways wouldn't be distracting.
What were you thinking?
I was just thinking security, with the windows open to the classroom like that.
Yeah, we looked at that again, Peter. Like every classroom will either have this kind of window or a side light right next to the door and a solid door. But the side light is limited in such a way, and it's kind of in a deep recess that you can see, who's on the other side of the door. You can't see, the entirety of the classroom.
But those larger windows, it looks to me like you could look in the whole classroom.
No, it's still the same way. We'll plot it out, but there are, if you want to call them safety zones in a classroom, where you could huddle in the corner and not be seen.
And you could also, instead of making it one big window, make it two small, narrow windows,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it wouldn't be quite the same, but if that's a
If
concern.
you go back to the.
But remember, we sort of want, it's kind of a practice everywhere. We don't want kids to be somewhere where they can't be supervised.
Right.
So, in order to encourage the use, you want to be able to have a teacher inside the classroom be able
And
to
see.
see who's out there and what's going on.
So if we go back to these special ceilings, both this one right here and also the wood one, and we're talked in the subcommittee as being desirable. This grid thing, we at least
Yeah.
we didn't really like.
Was a little too techy
So-
or something.
So so
Dropping something like that,
Yeah.
or
I like that.
That reminds me of
I think we had the.
those heating.
yeah.
They're modern, no.
I mean, you can do some fun things too, but we just didn't like the grid thing.
No.
We thought kids might throw things up over it.
Ceiling is
That's a good point.
Have a couple sneakers hanging.
The wood ceiling would only be at the very end. It doesn't have
It'd
to
only
be
be at
dark.
the-
But
It could
on
be
the
a
end,
light-
on the end, it was thought that this would open up to the woods.
Right, be
And
a-
the ceiling would pop up and not actually even
High.
have a ceiling and just have something hanging there to give you a little something, but to really open it up at the end and the
Right.
light that
It'd be
you'll
really
get coming
pretty.
in here, it'll be
One
spectacular.
of the things that I would be not fearful, but I think adults sometimes design these places and they lose the idea of what fun is for kids.
Yeah.
And when you said some kid's gonna throw a shoe up over that, I immediately said, right on. Now, I know that's not what you want.
Is that what you said, Margaret?
No.
I thought that until Margaret hit me in the head. Said, no way.
But I guess, and of course, that's not what you want, but my point is, when a space engages an individual like that, that kind of interaction is really something to be aware of.
Right.
It's giving you a message.
Right, and I think that these end ones are kind of like little tree forts. And you want it open, you want to be able to see the trees, feel like you're up in there, not have that traditional ceiling above you that's there.
Beanbag chairs?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
just have-
serious about suggesting those too.
There should probably be some marker boards on the side of the walls or something for them to play with or something, there's things that you can do. And even in the
One
ceiling, I
of the
wouldn't.
things we do for kids is put a marker board down low. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
uncomfortable
right.
for an adult to use it, and only
Right.
kids can use it.
But even in the ceiling, when we're talking about these different things, I agree that they're going to be fun to them too. It doesn't have to be a rigid wooden ceiling. It could be
Right.
branches, or it could be something else.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
we
these
did a.
trees, I don't think the sun can come through.
We actually
I mean-
did a.
How big is the principal's office?
You worried about how many kids are gonna
I thought the
be
superintendent's
reporting
office,
there?
not in the
Rob has
building.
spent a lot of time in the principal's office.
Some stories to tell
I
you.
can imagine. So, you
can
better
actually
double
get-
the size of the principal's office real fast if you put those grades in.
You can actually get Tectum. Tectum is a board
Yeah.
that goes for ceilings a lot of times, but we just took we did some pro bono work for a school in Boston, underprivileged and everything. So, but we did these Tectum boards. They can come in big sheets, 4x8s or bigger, and we designed outdoorsy reeds and trees and then so we drew them out, and then the contractors came in and cut them out, and then we laminated them up on the wall, and the back wall was one color and that was another color, kind of complementary, and it was a beautiful type thing. It was kind of fun, and the kids love it, and that type of thing could loosen it up a little bit too. So,
The other thing we can do in
fairly
this plan,
inexpensive,
remember
very inexpensive.
the geometry that's going on here. We don't have long straight corridors. They're
Right.
broken
Yeah.
up. And at these intersections, at the angles, we can introduce some curves or circles as a way to transition the geometry and and the ceiling. And again, that loosens things up. And generally,
Big circles.
curves and circles are more fun than
And they're very expensive, so you're gonna do them cheap.
The second picture from the top on the left, is that also wood, a lighter wood?
right
No,
here,
up
yeah.
the next one.
Yeah,
The one above it, yes, it is.
Yes.
But I love anything
Yeah.
with the round.
That's a light colored
That's
wood.
a nice
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that like, it looks like it's like a labor, just like, it's like
I think there's
Yeah.
a beam.
Carol, you also
Yes, ma'am.
mentioned
It's
corkboard
tongue and groove, and
Yes.
then there are
along the tops
beams.
I like that.
children's art.
Yeah, I do too.
Soft.
So
Yeah.
that will really give it that flair of.
Yeah, in the corridors, we have to watch out how much material, but we do have the opportunity to display material in the corridors. It's not quite like when you and I went to elementary school, probably, where you could plaster them. Now, because of fire reasons, they kind of limit it, but we do envision having a cork tack strip over the lockers so that you can display student artwork, and have other areas where you can have more of it, maybe some of it behind glass too.
You're gonna have to check
But
that with the
there's a
fire
wood
chief,
ceiling.
as far as because a lot of them won't let you do it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
how are we doing?
that's sort of I think the spirit of the interiors materials. One other space we wanted to share was the library.
Well, before you get there, one of the themes that we were thinking, it's always good to have themes in your design, because then it kind of grounds you as to what gives you reasons why you pick a certain thing. And one of the things that we talked about is being in the woods, having maybe the first floor with the colors and some of the themes being the ground, and the second floor being the tree, and the top floor being a canopy, and you can get in the sky up there, stuff like that. So
The Pembroke.
that may inform us with the colors and even some of the detailing of these little extra fun spaces, to try to show grasses maybe down on the first floor, and subtly, but
Right.
fun sense.
Yeah.
And we're gonna pop in a lot of purples.
And it's gonna be a lot of
blues.
purple.
Oh,
Jeff,
Purple
what
and-
is this of?
are you?
That was-
There's gonna be some purple, Carol.
It just shows different uses of wood
I think I've got a headache.
and flooring patterns and stuff like that. So
No.
Okay, so, one more space?
Well, I think we can talk about that from the outside. That's
I don't
okay,
like
Ellie. We should look at the notes and see if there's anything else.
All right, could everyone just read through the notes and see if there's anything else that you want to ask about before we
Interiors,
vote on this?
well, the only thing that you would change is on interior materials, biotile and VCT. You'd flip
Right,
flop.
change those
Yeah,
words,
I'll
did
send
that.
out the
Yep.
notes.
Yeah, and then you're gonna go into the exterior now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anything
So
more?
anything else on the interior? All right, because we still have to
Is
do
there more
exterior,
conversation gonna
and then
happen
we
about
still
interior
have to
stuff?
do fixtures. So we don't want to drag our feet, it's 9:30.
The
Okay.
the only thing on interiors I want to comment on this picture here.
The floor
There you go.
shines, did you
Yeah,
notice that?
the window space is
did.
good. I hope we don't have any of these little things at the end of walls and these,
Anyway,
Mullions?
no, outside. What happens to the site outside?
Oh,
That's not what to do.
No, we have nice natural woods outside. for
don't you like it?
The end of our
Which is
quarters.
what goes on
One little
outside
bush.
is not what to do.
Are you talking
Absolutely
about the-
nothing.
the site?
They have this little bush there sitting.
Okay, you can do exteriors.
Bring that up on
Looking at
Thursday.
the approach here and all too, let me reorganize this. Just
Where'd this come from?
we've updated the model a bit, and again, partly to reflect our discussion from last week and some slightly new thoughts here. But actually, I guess I can start with the overall view. Remember, one of the organizing ideas of this building is that we have these blocks of classrooms, you know, that generally represent each grade. There's a pod, and they're kind of like children's blocks. They're at a little bit of a, you know, free-form angle there, but they ultimately do, you know, kind of nest with the topography and the geometry of the road. And there are wedges of space in between that take up the angle change. And they sort of alternate between, you know, a solid block and then the piece in between, and a solid block and the piece in between, and a solid block. And the exterior materials echo that. So we're reinforcing that in the elevation here, and I'll show you in the model too, but you can look here. So here's that solid block, and that's all masonry. So that's, you know, brick and or a combination of brick and concrete block. But that's, you know, there. And here's the second one. And then there's the library one, and then there's one for the kindergarten wing. And in between, at the end of the building, in between, in these sort of bay projections, that's the material changes there, and then the patterning sort of changes as a way to break down the scale of the school. And we're still proposing that, like I said, these be masonry, and that these be horizontal metal panel like this. And it's about that deep, so whether the sun's shining on it or not, you get very strong horizontal shadow lines, which, you know, from a certain scale read like wood siding, which is nice in contrast, as we've mentioned, to the vertical tree trunks that are out there, to have the horizontals. And it also breaks up, you know, these masonry blocks too.
Carl, does that rust?
No, this is, you know, treated the same as metal windows, the same as the coating on metal windows.
You never have to paint.
You never have to paint them. They never rust.
So the dark brown is basically a vertical pattern, and the tan is the horizontal
You can
pattern?
sort of read it that way, but they're more, these are blocks, and yeah, but these are more horizontal. They have strip windows, these have individual punched windows,
Yeah.
you know, 8 foot wide.
Yeah.
These are continuous kind of ribbon windows in between.
Yeah.
And
One of the things we talked about on those blocks, just to let you know, that the darker ones that are the brick,
Those are
is not to have those tall vertical things. That it's more of a wall of a block actually. So the dark brown and light brown would be all one color.
Okay.
And in fact, that, and on the notes that should say on that first bullet, the block form two grade, that it was going to come all the way down to grade 2, that you wouldn't have that base on there. So those would read more as the blocks, and then these horizontals with the strip windows would be the metal panel out in front of them.
here's the view
Yeah, so you
from
get
the approach side
Kinda like
there.
that, but they haven't
Where's the
updated.
metal? I'm sorry, Carl, I missed that.
This is metal.
Oh, that's.
But it's not gonna be gray. That's
No,
what might be
no, I
throwing you.
understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me rotate
Purple,
a little
right?
bit. Oops.
Purple.
We get hidden behind a
Yeah.
tree there, but
I've seen the purple for my
so
lifetime.
this is metal here. This is masonry. This is metal. So it alternates like that. So as we move closer, you can sort of see that there. So the block where you can see the corner of it, it's all brick, all masonry there. And then in between here, these are the teachers' workrooms. There, this is this horizontal metal panel there, and horizontal windows too. The classroom windows you can see are more individual windows. Each classroom gets 2 of these big 8-foot sections of windows. So there's 16 feet of window.
But are those
per class.
individual panes, Carl?
They're individual windows
windows.
if you look close.
Self-cleaning.
If I zoom in on one,
That would be really nice.
that's a
Peter.
window right there
Oh,
where the
okay.
bottom slides up.
Okay. got
And
it.
then these are
Okay.
fixed pieces around it. So
Okay.
it makes a pattern.
Yeah.
It's a little,
Yep.
you know,
That's it.
dynamic. It's not static in that sense
Yeah.
there.
Carl,
And right now we're showing it all white, but we may actually want to do a separate color for these operable sections. Again, just to introduce a little fun, a little variety. You can do that. It's just paint color within the overall window pattern there.
Is that metal?
These are all metal
Okay.
windows. You know, they're coated
Windows, yeah.
the same as this. You know,
Yeah.
it's the same kind of Kynar finish.
I know I'll forget this in Thursday night's meeting, but on the blank wall there,
Yeah.
you know those stainless steel metal cables and vines? Have you worked with those?
Oh, the green walls.
Yeah, but not a green wall necessarily, but just,
A trellis.
Like an aircraft cable trellis.
Yeah.
type
yeah,
thing.
yeah, just something to apply to the wall to,
Kids decline.
There could be a couple of very appropriate applications for that in a few other places. I don't know if we necessarily want to do it in Frontier, but it's something to think about. We actually, there's a landscape challenge here as to what we want to put on the ground, but I don't want to get into that right now. But, we've talked about having very little mowed lawn around this school because it's sort of a natural setting. We do have, this area between the front drop-off area where there's a sidewalk, and the main entrance is down there. But, what's shown as green here may not want to be lawn. It may want to be something more natural.
Ground cover?
There. It could be ground cover is a little hard to maintain to, get the weeds out or get the trash out of it or the leaves that fall in there.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
So, as we get closer to the main entrance here, you can see again a couple other tweaks here that we've introduced. One is under this canopy. I think maybe Tilly mentioned it long ago. It'd be nice to have real wood there, to have natural wood there. It's an area that's pretty high visibility. You would appreciate it as you walk in. One of the challenges is because this is a fully sprinklered building and it's supposed to be non-combustible construction, we have to maybe either treat that wood or use some alternative that looks like wood but maybe is not flammable under there. Otherwise, we'd have to put sprinklers out there, and that's a pain, having outdoor sprinklers, and it's a whole nother system.
You gotta go
and
dry, you gotta
more
go dry clothes,
cost.
you
and-
don't wanna get
Yeah,
into
we
that.
don't wanna
Yeah.
do
Check
that.
things also like a McCore wood or something that's
Right,
There's-
you know,
right.
that's very nice wood, and it's not as hard as an iPay, but it's rated.
Yeah.
It's a rated wood. So.
And again, still a lot of glass at the entrance. We talked about upgrading this glass here, but there's good visibility, transparency there at the entrance and at the area into the office. We actually
we talked about
getting more glass here too at the office area. So you still have this canopy, you still have some columns, but we have a sort of a cleaner look perhaps
simpler
there.
and
Yeah,
more uniform
simpler.
look. So I think it'd be nice.
One of the other additions here is up here. This is still a wall of glass at the library. It's almost 2 stories high. It's like 20 feet high, and it has a sloped ceiling. So again, as you come into the room, there would be a high ceiling, but then at the last bay, it actually opens up. So the ceiling is sloped, and it like directs your view outwards to the forest. But we do have to think about the sun coming in there too. It's facing west. We do have trees that are going to provide some shade for the low west sun, but there's going to be times that 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon as the sun comes around that it may kind of overwhelm that space a bit. And so one of the things we're suggesting, if we zoom in on that, is a kind of sunshade there that's made up of. We have a photograph of another project to show you. It's a little maybe hard to see from where you are, but I'll zoom in on it a little bit. But right here, it's a series of. If I zoom in, you'll see it. See, it's a series of wood, just straight sections of lumber. They can be angled somewhat, but if you look straight through it, you can see through it. It's kind of like mini blinds, but turned vertical. The same as your house. If you have the blinds open, you can see through, but it provides shading.
There's an interior view too. The library view vertical.
Right here.
On the library at Merrimack College.
There it is. See it from the inside of the library? There they are on the outside.
And that's made out of wood?
Again, we hope it could be made out of wood there.
There's an option to do, you can do aluminum, I think
Yeah.
the window wall manufacturer might be able to do them in aluminum.
If it were wood, we'd choose something like cedar that, weathers, on its own, doesn't need maintenance. We don't want to have anything you really need to paint, on the outside of the building. There shouldn't be anything like that.
And I'd like to explain something that you mentioned,
Yeah.
that part would not be at eye level.
Right, it starts
It's a little
at,
higher.
if you look at that, can you see that? Zoom in a little bit. Gotta wait here for there it is. The bottom of these things, as we're sitting down, how your eye is about 4 feet off the floor. We would start these things at about 5 feet off the floor. So, but even if you're standing, you can see straight through it.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting, you know, your view is totally open.
So it's not little kids walking up there, it would be above their
It
heads.
just goes from here to here, Carrie. So it starts at 5 feet and be about, you know, 9 or 10 feet tall within this 20-foot section of glass.
Personally,
And at the very
spaced
top,
out.
You ever seen the Merrimack College Library?
it,
Theirs is
Yes.
concrete.
Yeah.
Is it like
yeah,
that?
well, that's a different scale, but yes, it
But
does the
there's-
same job as that, yes. And you can see it here on another project. And the one that's, I'll pass this around, maybe you can look closer at it. But the view to notice is the one here at the bottom. From the inside, it can be very thin and still do the job. So it's not obstructing the view, if you look at that view at the bottom. But it obviously blocks the sun coming from the southwest. So it would be appreciated.
That photograph is very different feeling than this image. The ends that are at about eye level,
Yeah.
they feel like when you line up with one of them, like there's a laser coming out of it that's going to hit me right in the eye. There's some tension in the end pieces being right at eye level in that elevation, but when I look at the picture, it's
Yeah.
very, very different.
Right, right.
So that, I mean, that's a concern of mine, lining the ends of those edges up relative to eye level, but,
But
Yeah.
isn't it the southeast that has the longest sun that during the day?
Well, this is facing west,
Right.
so
So
for
you
this
wouldn't
room,
get
we're
the-
concerned just about the southwest, the afternoon sun coming in, Tilly. You know, it can not only overheat the space and make it hard, you know, for the ventilation system to keep up, but make it uncomfortable if you're sitting there and the sun's hitting you directly. It can discolor materials. So it's good to cut down. We also intend all these vertical pieces are called mullions. These mullions, we expect them to be sort of extra deep, so they act like shading fins also to keep the angular sun out.
So is the space on the outside or the inside?
Those things are on the outside,
They're on the outside?
which is good. Keeps the heat on the outside too.
Okay.
The sun doesn't penetrate.
No, I mean the mullions, the way they go out.
Oh,
it's-
the extra depth would be on the
Yes.
outside.
That's what I mean,
Right,
okay.
right. Yeah.
You don't have to shovel the snow.
So,
You can go around.
So that's in the plans right now too. That we have to work out the details. We're talking to window manufacturers and how to integrate a sunscreen like this into their system.
And if-
Investigating can we make it out of wood and should we or
And are there other options that you're also looking at in
right. I
addition
mean,
to this?
you can certainly do it out of aluminum, the same, and then it could be provided by the same people who provide the windows.
Yeah,
would
no, I
provide that
mean,
sunscreen.
are you investigating other options besides that?
That's what we're talking about. Yes.
Right, she
Yeah.
means other options besides fins.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, the extra deep mullions in the
Right,
system
that's
would
what
be
I
the-
was wondering.
would be the option.
But if you use those, the visibility wouldn't be quite the same, would it? Oh yeah, I guess it would.
Maybe you could
would
look
be.
at, Carl, maybe also you could look at, because this is a rhythm issue and a density issue.
right.
So you want to get the least amount you can, that'll still give you
Still
the
be
shade.
effective.
And maybe you can also look at lining them up with the mullions, because they'll probably be supported off them anyways. And then on the bigger span windows, you might get one or two in the middle, but on most of them, they'll be on the mullions. So
Yeah.
you might take a look at that. I don't know.
Yeah, we have to
Well, one of
refine
the
the
things it does too,
Yeah,
if you
refine
look
it
at
a little.
this, and the model's catching up here, I think, before you see the
Not
detail.
100%
but-
sold on it myself
No.
either.
I mean,
So-
visually, it's.
I mean, it could be good. It's just not quite
I mean, if you didn't have the sunscreen, you'd actually have power shades on the inside.
right.
Which is what we've done in other libraries, where you get power shades on the inside. This actually combines is screening it, but it also combines aesthetics, if you happen to have that propensity.
The other
But there's
thing
other
we
ways
would
of doing it
we would
inside.
suggest here is that we actually change the glass types too. That down low would be more, vision glass. Up high though, we would suggest more tinted glass that knocks down the glare, but you can still see through it. You can still
Right.
see the sky, the treetops, but it knocks down a lot of the heat gain and the
Yeah.
glare. And our feeling is if we had a sunscreen like this or some way to control it on the outside, we wouldn't need shades on the inside. We'd save that cost and operating issues of having screens because operating screens on a 20-foot high window, they all have
It's
to
a
be
lot.
motorized.
Yeah.
They cost a lot. That sort of thing can be a maintenance issue. So, the other thing to notice here is the detail at the top here too. That's another area with that overhang. You can see the shadow we get there. It's another place where you might want to introduce wood. We're trying to, warm up the building, make it, a little more natural where we can, so that soffit area up there, if I zoom way in up there, you'll see.
Is
Way
that-
up there.
Is that picture on the, that you mounted on the board, is that what you're talking about, or is that of a?
That's just inspiration.
That's an inspiration photo.
That shows another building
Understand.
that's done that.
Got it.
That used wood in this area like that, used wood for a sunscreen.
I can't, I haven't looked at it long enough to be able to intellectually explain it, but there's a feeling in that image there which is very woodsy and has a people's scale to it.
Mhm.
And when you go back, I think the biggest question I have about the exterior is this elevation of this library and the scale of this elevation in relationship to people,
Mhm.
in relationship to the ground plane. It doesn't, it's never worked for me, but it's the one piece. Everything else seems to have a wood feel to it, and you have the sense of the banding over there, and
Well, that's where to some extent, having an element out there can help that scale.
Yeah,
so we don't
no.
have 20 feet
Yeah.
of
No,
glass.
glass.
It does help break it down a bit. Having
definitely
the
does.
porch underneath is definitely a human scale element there.
Yep.
But so we are working on that. I think the issue here, they do have an outdoor porch. You can actually walk out at the second
Right.
floor. That
That's-
makes it
that's
a
a
little
big
bit
part of it,
And they've
yeah.
got a couple trees in front, directly in front.
Yep.
Natural trees that
Yep.
help the.
I think if it was
feeling, too.
down, what do you think, Carl? If it was down a little bit,
We
so that
could
you
perhaps
you
lower
have
it a
more
bit.
window at the top,
I was
and,
almost thinking, yeah, or even
and push it down to meet that.
The bottom.
you can take a look at that, or even the other way too. Is that maybe you push
would
it
go
up
up.
and
Yes.
above your eye level, like you're
Yeah.
saying, so
Right,
that you're
right.
still
You don't wanna
blocking
be able
most
to
of the
look
Because
sun.
that way you have clear
And
visibility
it
when you're
might
looking
change
out
the
the
scale a
window.
little bit on it.
Well, you're in a library. You're not supposed to be
Yeah.
looking out the window.
And the pieces themselves.
I don't
just
know
the-
about you, but that's what I do.
Kids,
You know, like
they're
the
kids,
little
Tilly.
ones.
They daydream.
If you're
Yeah.
sitting
To support
down
the
and you're
roof.
supposed to
Yeah.
be sitting
Yeah,
right
like
in the
this at the
library.
end.
What's it overlook, the parking lot?
Yeah, there's nothing much
All
there.
right, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap this up because Carl obviously has some work to do on it. And it's good that everyone has some input, but we just have a lot more to get through.
I think just on the notes, again, on the second bullet, it says exterior masonry suggested to continue same color palette to reinforce block form. So that's where we
Yeah.
talked about those instead of being the horizontal bands in between the column-ish piers, like it's all one, and it goes to the grade, goes all the way down to the ground as one color rather than having that base different color to it. I think it'll simplify it.
Why do you do that?
Because I think that it's there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I think you gotta start simplifying a few things, and we talked about this. And this is one place where I think it'll reinforce the idea of the block, to have it really as a block, and you have punched windows, which is nice, and then in the metal panel, which is more horizontal piece, you also have the horizontal windows, which I think is a good move to do. So that's what I would suggest. I think it'll look better, and maybe when you come back, you can take a look at that.
You don't see a foundation as being a unifying theme between the different elements?
Yeah, well, that's what that tried to do, but I didn't think it made it.
We actually are thinking of, just because we have to deal with the grade and all, of varying, bringing it down, not to the same height between the two materials, but still having a unifying element at the bottom there.
You can try it.
They're at two different heights.
Yeah, you can try it. I think the important thing is not to have these tall, or not to have these piers going down onto nothing. It has to ground itself somehow, to have that.
Right.
We also talked about the entries, and there were just a lot of these little gables.
Yeah,
all
we
around.
simplified those.
And we left the one at the main entrance there. Took the one off of the
So
side. Yeah,
there's
that
a
one.
gable here, and again, this is open. There's no enclosed space under there. It's just a roof form there.
And then further down,
go down to the kindergarten room wing.
got
We
rid of that one.
simplified
So
that
why did you do that?
to simplify it and not distract from the main entrance. Right there. Whoops.
I think
right
that the entrance
there.
points, whether it's a gable or whatever, and let's say it's a gable.
We had a gable
it-
on this at one time.
It signifies the entrance, and then
Right,
all of a
but-
sudden we started getting one over here too, which didn't really fit, and then there was a little tiny one around the corner at the kindergarten secondary entrance, so it was
Right.
getting confusing, not only in the look of it, but also to people coming up and knowing where to go.
So
to get
we've
into the
suggested all
building.
those become horizontal roofs.
So these became more simplified to unify it with the rest of the
little
building.
kindergarten entrance, yes.
And the main entrance has the more grand
Right.
entry, and I know that you may differ from what I said on the other side, but when you get around the corner, the main entrance going into the
The bus
cafeteria and
entrance.
gym,
The gym.
right now it's a flat roof, and I just asked him to take a look at possibly making that, because that's our second main entrance. That's the main entrance for a lot of people in off hours for the cafeteria, if there's
Yep.
plays or whatever, or the gymnasium or whatever. So what I asked is to take a look at it and to see if a gable would work right there.
I
there.
think that makes.
And we also took off to the right there, we took one off of there too. So we're trying
Right.
to
Used
keep
to
the
be
building the
Yeah.
building and the entrances the entrances to make it
Can you,
more understandable.
Well,
can
in
you
your
get a
plan,
second?
But I
Can
thought
you
one of the reasons we were,
look at
this
the
is just what I thought I remembered, and I might be
elevation
wrong.
to the kid?
That one of the reasons we suggested that gable there was to give some height to that fact that that was the only place that was one story. So part of that was to, was to give the illusion that it was it was closer to the scale of the rest of the building.
And I think that needs
We all
work.
liked
Yeah,
gables,
that's-
so that's part of the other thing.
Quick, get around that corner. You're still working on that.
Not done.
No, don't look at that.
Get around the corner.
But I think
What
that
we
it's-
have here actually though is, you're right, Carol, that's exactly why we were thinking of taller elements here. We brought this roof up higher on this corner, which is the most prominent corner actually. But we also have this roof screen up here. We have a couple of large rooftop units up there, which are almost a story high. So by cladding that in the horizontal metal panel, it's just two-sided. It's not enclosed space or anything, but it's just a fence up there, really, a screen wall. It's like we do have a second story on this part of the building now, which is nice. So in that sense, we thought we could drop this back down and not have a gable here, which would compete with the gable at the front door. But you do see this round window, you do see this raised roof area of the kindergarten
That makes
as a
sense.
pretty prominent corner
Yep.
from way back if we go back to
Makes
the
sense.
entrance there, so.
Yep.
But there are a couple things still for us to work on.
Okay.
And we'll come back hopefully next week. I know we're gonna sort of recap site again next week, but we'll have further development here too.
Okay.
And then some of the wood just underneath this, the ceiling of the walk in the front, there's wood there, but then we're also thinking over at the entrance to the gymnasium and also on the backside where there's the cafeteria looking out on the playground, there's gonna be a combination of solid, overhang and then a slatted one where it'll stop
Like
the
a
sun,
Trellis.
like a little
yeah,
trellis.
Right out
But it
here.
will, it'll also bring that wood back into it, which will be nice. It'll be a good element that repeats
You look
itself.
at the playground view.
Yeah.
Which roof were you putting the solar on?
The
Gym
cafeteria right
cafeteria.
here, Tilly, if I zoom in. These are south-facing roofs, the
Okay.
gym and the cafeteria.
Oh.
Here's that trellis that we were talking about, that Jeff was just talking about right there.
Is the generator still there?
This is gonna get smaller actually and just have the transformer there. The generator is gonna be over here by the loading dock, so we got it out of this
Great.
corner, which is nice.
Okay.
So we can shrink that, little fence area there.
Good.
So. But here are those units where someone was saying on the kitchen, there's 3 of them, those aren't even drawn to
Those
scale.
aren't as big as they
They're
are.
even bigger than that in reality, they cover most of this roof. And there's the blank
Gotcha.
wall we were talking about,
Yeah.
where the basketball hoops would
But
be
you don't
against.
ever
See, I
the
think
school.
some windows on the
Yeah.
top, little eyebrows
you're
would
not
look
gonna
nice.
They wouldn't look
That's a
nice,
hell of
but
a big-
So we're gonna get the points for the solar, right? And for any other.
we hope so. We have to calculate how much, what the proposed electrical load is and then generate 10% of that.
I
with
think there are
renewables.
charts that
So.
I saw from Merrimack Valley, did several graphs, charts of what was used at the Pembroke High School.
Yeah.
High school, Pearlie,
Yeah.
they broke it all
We,
down.
we sort of have to design overall and then do the electrical load calculations to know what the proposed uses, because we're trying to measure something that's not yet built, and then take 10% of it.
Does the town have to do any other provisions in their laws to accommodate getting the points
Yeah,
from the
they're-
state?
Not in the laws, but a lot of them fall to the school department
Policy.
policy.
Policies.
Things like, you know, you use green cleaners, you know.
I
and
gotcha, yeah.
We won't let buses idle more
Yeah.
than a minute and a half, I don't know what it is, but there are things like that, that a lot of them
Okay.
will require policy
Because we were
statements.
considering on the planning board
Ultimately voted by the
bylaws
school committee, I think, but, yeah.
for wind turbines
just-
and that, and I thought that is in the effort to get us a credit.
There's one about
We still have
alternative
one more
energy
section to do.
vehicles being given the parking spaces
So-
closest to the building.
Yeah,
Remember,
okay.
if we do that, there's a point for that.
So they don't have to look at our zoning bylaws
No,
to
we
make
don't get
sure
that
we
point.
fit into the pattern.
We don't get that point about
Okay,
zoning
good.
and densities and.
Okay,
So the only
We're
I'm
too
done.
rural.
correction to this that I would say is on the third bullet on exterior is the main gable form to remain, and possibly one at the gym calf entry to be investigated.
Okay.
All right.
Just to make sure that it gets.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
So-
that one at the gym is very important,
Yeah.
actually.
All right, so now all we need to do is vote on all of the suggestions that you have seen before you
Just to
dealing
support
with the interior and exterior materials and finishes. Just show of
I move
support.
we support, that we vote in favor of the suggestions.
But we haven't,
Any discussion?
you haven't really selected anything. I mean,
Yes,
It's a-
we
it's a
have.
direction
Everything,
and it's also.
that was
just
just the
whatever's
direction.
written here on this page?
No, all the things he just showed us. We're voting to support pursuing the costing of these finishes. How's that?
Prior to the cost.
No, we're saying we want you to cost these out.
This is a
okay.
direction to go.
This is,
Right.
I got you.
We can still make decisions
the motion
later
clear.
based on how the prices come, but
Yeah.
the vote is to
Well,
support what we have seen this evening with the corrections that we've all talked about.
you know,
Okay, and we had a
So
second.
moved.
Michelle seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, great.
Okay,
So
the
that
other-
takes care of
The other meeting we
exterior.
had last week and was on FF&E as it's known, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Because even though those aren't bought at this time, those are all things that come after the construction is underway. There are some things that do impact the basic infrastructure, how the building is laid out, and so we wanted to get the process started. But we actually had a follow-up meeting today, just this afternoon, and so what I'd suggest, Ellie, is that we revise these notes, add today's issues to them, and vote on them next time.
That would be fine.
that's fine.
So
We're
moved.
gonna pass on
So
that.
moved.
right.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
You have it?
Sure, I'll bring it to Tuesday.
All right, is there anything else that you need to bring to light? Kat, anything?
No, just
Okay.
we're meeting again this coming Thursday.
Thursday.
Yes.
3 o'clock, there's a meeting on SPED, and we're obviously very concerned about
Jeff.
getting that resolved, because
Jeff.
the
Right,
SPED issue's gotta go to, if it's gonna be revised at all, it's gonna go back to,
right.
Department of Ed, and they don't move very fast, so we're concerned, and I'm glad we're meeting on that. And then we're meeting on the site at 4:30,
Right,
and, again, like I said, hopefully be before you a week from now, and
okay.
They're gonna be in Carol's office, right, Carol?
All the meetings Thursday in Carol's office?
Yeah, so
Okay.
George and, who's it, Ellie?
Yeah, it's Rob.
And Rob.
Okay,
All right.
Carol's
Is there another
office.
meeting on the exterior plan, or what's the next one planned?
Michelle, that's a
You can
beautiful.
get back to us if you want.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
I think we wanna talk
Oh,
about
thank
whether we wanted to meet again.
I thought we did, didn't,
Yes, we do
Yeah,
want to
I think
meet
we
again.
We picked that, no, I mean as a building committee.
As
yeah,
just as a sub
Subcommittee.
Right,
first.
so if we met as a subcommittee a week from Thursday.
It's not a subcommittee,
Oh, that's right, we did have a date anyway.
we did pick a day.
just a subgroup.
Discussion.
And then
a discussion group.
at the building committee after that, right? We
Right.
found a date that worked.
Yeah, I think it was the seventh, the,
29th.
Yeah, because
27th.
I don't know
29th is a
whether it was
Tuesday, but
you or
the
them,
22nd is
did
the
the, plow the
next meeting
sidewalk.
here.
No,
So
the,
24th?
The leaves. against the rock wall.
Let me sit in the back here.
There's absolutely not gonna be any grass growing there, it's okay.
It'll be a
I had it
subgroup,
written
maybe.
down.
You know, we could do the streets.
Actually, I'll tell you when it was.
You know
We
what?
had talked February 7th at 6:30.
February 7th?
Yeah,
At
it's
6:30
6:30.
for materials.
Oh, yeah,
So-
6:30, yep, here it is.
All right, so let me just throw out, so, all right,
Because it's just.
Yeah, we use it.
what day is today? Today's
No,
15th. So we're meeting
that's
again
what
on the 22nd, when we're gonna get a report and an update from Rob, and you guys all on the site. Hopefully, we can vote on that. We'll get a little more of a recap on the exterior materials, and then now FF&E is gonna be added to that as well.
For the 22nd, that's
For the
next week.
22nd, and then the meeting after that is gonna be on the 5th, which anything that we have remaining to vote that has not been voted on will be voted on then. And then the big meeting for us is gonna be on February 19th for us to vote on the submission of DD to the MSBA.
Right.
We're meeting on the
So-
7th.
All
from
7:30
So
right now, everything's
please
7:30 right now.
Don't make any plans on the 19th. We absolutely
Yep.
have to have everybody.
So we'll be talking about costs and probably some.
Right,
value
it's our
engineering
final
on-
Right.
decisions before it goes
Right,
to
and then at that
MSBA.
point, are we gonna go to
February
meeting every 3
19th
weeks,
at
give or
7:30.
take? Carl?
It may well be that
Okay,
every 3 weeks after that.
I
Okay.
know. You know, we had no choice. We had to do it.
all right. I'd like to
I
make a
move that
motion
we,
to adjourn.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Meeting
you.
adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.